The train doesn't stop because this is a station. It stops because the forest ends here. No city skyline, no factories, no prison walls, just trees, silence, and a stretch of track that seems to lead nowhere. People step down holding suitcases, children gripping their parents' hands, believing this is a transit point, a labor camp, a place they will pass through. They are wrong. Almost everyone who arrives here will be dead within hours. Not weeks, not days, hours. There will be no registration numbers, no long barracks, no survival through work. This place was built for only one purpose, and it works with terrifying efficiency. In this forest, names vanish, families dissolve, and the world pretends not to hear what is happening just beyond the trees. There are no cameras, no witnesses, no graves meant to last. And yet, despite everything designed to erase it, this place still speaks. Because some were meant to disappear, forever lived long enough to remember. And what they saw here is almost impossible to comprehend. Night falls over a town that no longer sleeps. A ghetto seal behind brick and wire hums with a low, constant sound. Coughing, whispers, the scrape of shoes on stone. Somewhere a child cries, thin and hoarse, then stops. In an apartment stripped bare, a man presses his forehead to a cold window and stares at a street he is forbidden to walk. He does not know it yet, but the decision about how he will die has already been made, far away, in rooms with polished tables and maps pinned to walls. Long before camps with names exist, before forests are chosen and rail lines measured, the idea has already hardened. The idea says that some lies are a problem to be solved. And problems, the idea insists, can be eliminated. It begins not with gas or fire, but with words. Words spoken in lecture halls, printed in newspapers, repeated until they feel like common sense. Germany after the First World War is a nation humiliated, angry, searching for explanations that are simple and enemies that can be named. Racial theorists talk about blood as if it were currency, about purity as if it were science. Jews are described not as neighbors or citizens, but as parasites, as disease. The language is cold, clinical, almost tidy. It slips easily in a law. When the Nazi Party rises to power, hatred becomes policy, and policy becomes routine. Identification papers change. Businesses are marked. Marriages are forbidden. A society is trained, step by step, to look away. At first, the persecution wears a bureaucratic face. Dismissal from jobs. Forced sales of property. Public humiliation, staged like theater. The crack of glass during pogroms echoes down streets while police stand by, hands in pockets, eyes forward. Violence is no longer chaotic. It is sanctioned. Yet even now, the regime speaks the language of removal rather than annihilation. Jews are being pushed out, squeezed out, encouraged to leave. Immigration offices overflow. Ships sail. Borders close. The world shrugs. And as options narrow, the regime's patience thins. War changes everything. When Germany invades Poland, the conquest brings millions of Jews under Nazi control almost overnight. The old measures are suddenly insufficient. Ghettos rise behind walls topped with broken glass. Entire neighborhoods are compressed into blocks where hunger becomes a constant ache and disease moves faster than rumor. The air smells of rot and coal smoke. Typhus spreads. Children learn the sound of boots on stairs and the meaning of curfew sirens. The ghettos are not an end. They are holding pens, temporary solutions that stretch on, grinding down bodies and spirits while officials argue over what comes next. Then the shooting starts. With the invasion of the Soviet Union, mobile killing units follow the army east. They arrive in villages at dawn, rounding up families, marching them to ravines and forests. The shots are loud at first, then muffled by earth. Pits fill. Soil trembles. The men pulling the triggers drink to steady their hands. Reports flow back to Berlin. Numbers tallied with grim efficiency. Tens of thousands dead. Hundreds of thousands. The killing is fast, direct, and horrifyingly intimate. And it reveals a problem the planners did not anticipate. The killers are breaking down. Some refuse orders. Others vomit. Some go mad. Commanders complain of declining discipline, of psychological strain. Bullets are expensive. Graves are shallow. Witnesses abound. The massacres leave behind survivors who escape, tell stories, spread panic. What was meant to be decisive feels messy, uncontrolled. The leadership wants something cleaner, quieter, more efficient. A method that kills without demanding eye contact, without splattering blood on uniforms, without leaving men haunted by faces they can no longer forget. Back in Berlin, discussions shift. The language grows even colder. Jews are no longer a population to be managed, but a logistical challenge. How to transport them, where to put them, how to dispose of them at scale. The ghettos are overcrowded and unstable. Disease threatens to spill beyond the walls. Feeding millions is not part of the plan. The war is expanding, resources tightening, and the ideological goal, removing Jews from Europe entirely, remains non-negotiable. What emerges is a terrible synthesis. Ideology fused with industrial thinking. The solution, when it comes, is deceptively simple. Kill them in places designed for nothing else. Purpose-built sites, hidden from cities, connected by rail. No witnesses. No survivors intended. The camps will not look like prisons at first glance. There will be signs, schedules, routines. There will be deception. Victims will be told they are resettled, deloused, reassigned. Speed will be essential. Confusion will be a tool. Death will be processed, not witnessed. This is where the idea becomes a system. A centralized plan to murder an entire people, coordinated across territories, ministries, and rail networks. It is here that the Nazi leadership authorizes Operation Reinhard, the most lethal phase of the Holocaust. Named after a man already dead, the operation carries no hint of mercy. Its objective is absolute. The Jewish population of occupied Poland is to vanish. Not scattered, not imprisoned, erased. Operation Reinhard is not announced to the public. It unfolds in silence, masked by euphemisms and stamped documents. Orders pass through hands that never touch a weapon. Engineers design buildings with airflow in mind. Clerks calculate train timetables down to the minute. Accountants estimate the value of hair, gold teeth, shoes. Every element is measured, refined, improved. Murder becomes an administrative process, broken into tasks that feel almost ordinary to those performing them. 3 sites are chosen to anchor this system. All are remote. All are near rail lines. None are meant to be seen. Their names will become synonymous with death, though at the time, they are little more than dots on a map. What matters is not where they are, but what they will do. These places will not hold prisoners. They will not rehabilitate or exploit labor on a large scale. They will receive transports, strip human beings of their last possessions, and kill them within hours. Then the trains will return, empty, ready for the next load. The decision marks a point of no return. Up to this moment, the genocide has been brutal, expansive, but still fragmented. Massacres here, starvation there, deportations elsewhere. Operation Reinhard binds these threads into a single, accelerating mechanism. It is the moment when extermination becomes policy in the most literal sense. Not a byproduct of war, not collateral damage. The goal itself. As preparations begin, secrecy tightens. Workers are sworn to silence. Local populations are kept at a distance with warnings and lies. The forests chosen for the camps swallow sound. Trains will arrive and depart without drawing attention. Smoke will rise briefly, then disperse. Ash will be buried, scattered, erased. The planners believe they have finally found a method that solves every problem at once. Efficient, discreet, psychologically sustainable for the perpetrators. But even in these early stages, cracks appear. The system relies on people to function: guards, drivers, clerks, prisoners forced into labor. It depends on deception holding just long enough. It assumes obedience will always outweigh fear, that no one will resist when the truth becomes undeniable. These assumptions have not yet been tested. They will be in places not yet built, by people not yet transported, under conditions so extreme that survival itself will become an act of defiance. For now, the idea moves forward unchecked. Rails are surveyed. Forests are marked. Blueprints are sketched. Somewhere in occupied Poland, a quiet stretch of land is being selected for a camp that does not yet have a name in the minds of its future victims. The trains will come. The lie will be told. And once the machinery starts, it will be very hard to stop. The order does not arrive with sirens or speeches. It arrives as paper, thin and quiet, stamped and signed, passed from one desk to another. In offices far from the ghettos, men lean over maps with rulers and pencils, tracing rail lines like surgeons marking skin. Outside the windows, life continues. Cars pass, clerks smoke, coffee cools. Inside, a machinery of death is being assembled with methodical care. The idea has been approved. Now it must be built. The man placed in charge is not a visionary, not a grand ideologue. He is an organizer. Odilo Globoknik has already proven himself useful in occupied Poland, ruthless and efficient, a bureaucrat who understands how to turn ideology into action. He is given authority that cuts across ministries, police units, and local administrations. Resources flow toward him quietly. Construction materials, trains, men. The task before him is unprecedented: to eliminate an entire population as quickly and invisibly as possible. The camps planned under Operation Reinhard are not meant to resemble anything that came before. They are not prisons, not labor complexes, not ghettos expanded into the countryside. They are instruments. Their locations are chosen with care, far from cities, surrounded by forests, close enough to rail lines to move human cargo efficiently, distant enough that screams will dissolve into trees. The land itself becomes a collaborator. Pine needles soften sound. Sand swallows footprints. Smoke drifts and disappears. At first, there are discussions about scale. How many transports per day? How many people per train? How long unloading should take? These conversations are stripped of emotion. The victims are numbers, units, throughput. Language shields the speakers. Deportation means killing. Resettlement means death. Special treatment means extermination. The words slide across the tongue without friction, making it possible to plan the unthinkable as if it were routine. The decision to build 3 extermination camps is deliberate. One would be too fragile, too dependent on uninterrupted operation. 3 allows flexibility, redundancy, speed. Each camp will serve a region, drawing in Jews from surrounding ghettos, clearing entire districts in waves. The goal is not terror for its own sake, but completion. To empty Poland of Jews before the outside world can react, before resistance can organize, before the war's direction changes. The first of these camps is already taking shape elsewhere, proving the concept. Lessons are learned quickly. What works, what slows the process, what creates panic. Panic is dangerous. Panic delays killing. Calm is more efficient. Victims must believe the lie long enough to walk willingly toward their own deaths. Deception is refined into an art. Signs are designed. Speech is rehearsed. Guards train not only to enforce, but to mislead. As plans solidify, the ghettos become reservoirs waiting to be drained. Rumors spread through cramped streets. Work camps in the east, farms, factories. Some cling to hope because hope is easier than despair. Others sense the truth, but have nowhere to run. Borders are sealed. Hiding places are few. The Judenrate receive orders to compile lists, to organize transports. Cooperation is coerced, and refusal is met with immediate death. The machinery depends on victims participating in their own destruction, and the system is designed to ensure they do. Railways become arteries of genocide. Timetables are adjusted. Passenger cars are reassigned. Freight wagons are repurposed. Trains that once carried coal and cattle are now packed with human beings, doors sealed from the outside. Inside, the air grows hot and sour. People faint. Children scream until they are too weak to cry. The journey is often longer than promised. winding through countryside that feels painfully normal. Fields, villages, church spires flashing past slats of wood. When these trains arrive at their destinations, they will not stop in bustling stations. They will roll into clearings, into places that barely exist on maps. There will be no crowds, no vendors, no announcements. Just a platform, a fence, a gate. The efficiency of the operation depends on speed. Trains must be unloaded quickly, cleaned, and sent back for the next transport. Delays ripple backward through the system, threatening the schedule of annihilation. The men selected to staff these camps are drawn from various branches of the Nazi apparatus. Some have experience in earlier euthanasia programs, where disabled Germans were killed under the guise of medical care. They bring with them knowledge, how to use gas, how to dispose of bodies, how to manage staff sworn to secrecy. Others are ordinary policemen, guards, drivers. They are given authority, uniforms, weapons, and a sense of purpose that blurs morality into obedience. To supplement the SS, the regime recruits guards from occupied territories, many of them prisoners of war offered survival in exchange for service. These men are trained quickly, brutalized deliberately, taught to strike without hesitation. They stand watch, herd victims, fire into crowds when panic breaks through the deception. Their presence adds another layer of distance between planners and victims, another buffer against responsibility. Construction moves fast. Barracks rise. Fences are strung with barbed wire and woven with branches to block sight lines. Watchtowers overlook clearings that will soon be filled with people. Paths are laid out not for convenience, but for control, curving routes that prevent crowds from seeing what lies ahead. Buildings are placed to conceal their true purpose, their entrances disguised, their interiors engineered for rapid killing. The planners understand something essential. The victims must not realize the truth too early. If they do, resistance becomes likely. Violence erupts. Chaos spreads. Efficiency collapses. So the camps are designed as stages for a final performance. Upon arrival, deportees will be greeted. Orders will be barked calmly. Families will be told they are about to shower. The sick and elderly will be separated under the pretense of medical care. Every step will feel temporary, procedural, survivable. Behind this facade, the reality is stark. The camps have no infrastructure for long-term housing because no one is meant to stay. Food supplies are minimal. Medical facilities are non-existent. There are no plans for sanitation beyond what is required to process bodies quickly. Everything unnecessary to killing is excluded. This is not neglect. It is design. As summer approaches, the pace quickens. Entire ghettos are marked for liquidation. Notices go out ordering residents to assemble with limited belongings. Panic mixes with resignation. Some hide children. Others dig bunkers beneath floors. Many comply, exhausted by years of deprivation, hoping that obedience will buy time. The system exploits this hope mercilessly. Word of mass killings filters back in fragments. Escapees whisper of forests where people are shot, of camps where no one returns. These stories are hard to believe, even harder to accept. The scale defies imagination. The human mind resists truths that annihilate meaning. The Nazis count on this disbelief. It is one of their most effective weapons. Within the command structure, confidence grows. Reports are encouraging. The killing methods are working. The numbers are staggering. Each transport that vanishes without incident reinforces the belief that the system is flawless. The planners see themselves as solving a problem permanently, reshaping Europe through annihilation. They do not see individuals. They see completion percentages. Yet beneath this confidence lies an unspoken urgency. Time matters. The war is expanding. Resources are finite. The longer the operation takes, the greater the risk of exposure, resistance, or political complication. Speed becomes an obsession. Improvements are demanded. If killing can be made faster, it must be. If bodies can be disposed of more efficiently, they will be. In this atmosphere, one of the camps begins to take shape deeper in the eastern forests, near a small village that few outside the region have ever heard of. Surveyors mark boundaries. Rail spurs are extended. Materials arrive under guard. Locals are told nothing or fed vague explanations about military facilities. The trees absorb the noise of construction, just as they soon will absorb the sounds of death. The camp does not yet have a presence in the minds of its future victims. Its name means nothing to them. It is simply another place on a rail line they will never see clearly. But for the men overseeing its construction, it represents refinement, an opportunity to apply lessons learned elsewhere, to build a killing center that runs smoother, quieter, more efficiently than those before it. As the final details are set in motion, the machinery of Operation Reinhard begins to hum at full volume. Trains are scheduled back-to-back. Ghettos are emptied street by street. The camps wait, ready to receive what the railways deliver. The system is now complete enough to sustain itself, to operate day after day without pause. What the planners cannot fully anticipate is the human element they have tried so hard to erase. Fear, desperation, memory. Even in places designed to leave no witnesses, some will see too much, feel too deeply, remember too clearly. And as the first transports approach this new camp hidden in the trees, the question is no longer whether the system will kill, but how long it can do so before those trapped inside begin to push back against the lie. The forest seems endless when you stand at its edge. Pines rise close together, their trunks straight and indifferent, their needles swallowing sound. Even on a clear day, light struggles to reach the ground. The air smells of sap and damp soil, and beneath it all there is a heavy stillness, the kind that makes footsteps feel intrusive. This is the kind of place where things can disappear, and that is precisely why it is chosen. The men who survey this land do not linger. They step carefully, boots pressing into sand, eyes scanning distances rather than beauty. They are not here to admire the forest. They are here to measure silence, to calculate how far sound travels before it dissolves, to see how easily a road can be hidden, how quickly smoke thins among the trees. They note the nearby rail line, the slight curve that allows trains to slow without being seen from far away. They see isolation not as a flaw, but as an asset. In their minds, this place already serves its purpose. The village nearby is small, unremarkable, easily controlled. A handful of houses, dirt roads, fields stretching toward the horizon. Locals are accustomed to soldiers passing through, to orders given without explanation. In occupied Poland, secrecy is enforced by fear. Questions are dangerous. Curiosity is punished. When construction materials begin to arrive, when unfamiliar men appear with weapons and authority, no one asks why. The war has taught them not to. This land sits near the eastern edge of the general government, close enough to the vast Jewish populations of occupied Poland to make transport efficient, far enough for major cities to keep attention away. The Bug River region is sparsely populated, its forests dense, its infrastructure minimal. For planners obsessed with efficiency and invisibility, it is ideal. Trains can arrive and depart without drawing crowds. Killing can happen without witnesses. Ash can be buried in sand that remembers nothing. The decision to build here is not random. It is informed by experience already gained elsewhere. The men overseeing Operation Reinhard have learned that extermination works best when distance separates the act from the observer. Urban centers complicate killing. Rural emptiness simplifies it. The forest becomes a natural wall, more effective than concrete or barbed wire alone. Nature itself is conscripted into the system. As survey stakes are driven into the ground, the shape of the camp begins to exist before any structure rises. Boundaries are drawn not only to contain people, but to control perception. Certain areas will never be visible from others. Paths will curve deliberately. Buildings will face inward, away from the outside world. Even within the camp, knowledge will be compartmentalized. Those forced to work in one section will not see what happens in another. Confusion will be constant. Understanding will be fatal. Rail engineers assess the spur line carefully. Trains must be able to arrive close enough to unload quickly, but not so close that passing traffic notices activity. The rail cars will be sealed during transport, opened only upon arrival. Speed matters. The longer people remain inside the wagons, the greater the risk of panic, resistance, or death before processing. Every delay threatens the rhythm of the system. The planners imagine the flow long before it happens. A train arrives. Doors open. Shouts. People spill out, blinking in unfamiliar light. They are ordered into lines, reassured, directed. The deception must begin immediately, before fear can harden into defiance. This forest clearing will be their first impression. Not a camp bristling with danger, but something quieter, almost rural. Less threatening. Temporary. Construction begins under guard. Local laborers are sometimes used, kept at a distance from sensitive areas, rotated frequently to limit what any one person can see. They're told they are building a military installation, a supply depot, something that does not concern them. Armed men ensure compliance. The sound of hammers and saws carries only a short distance before trees swallow it whole. Barracks rise quickly, simple wooden structures designed for function, not comfort. Fences are erected, layers of barbed wire woven together with branches and pine boughs. This is not for strength alone, but for concealment. From the outside, the camp blends into the forest, its edges softened, its purpose disguised. Even aerial observation would struggle to identify it clearly. The camp is meant to exist in plain sight and remain unseen. The internal layout is planned with ruthless precision. There will be separation, always separation. Arrival areas distinct from killing areas. Storage areas hidden from both. The flow of human beings will move in one direction only, never crossing back. This prevents confusion, limits communication, and reinforces the illusion of order. Once someone enters the system, there is no path out except the one intended. The men overseeing construction understand that fear must be managed carefully. Too much, too soon, and the system collapses into chaos. Too little, and control weakens. The environment itself is designed to balance this. The forest isolates, but it also disorients. Sounds echo strangely. Distance becomes hard to judge. Time feels suspended. For those who will arrive here, stripped of familiar landmarks, the world will seem to shrink to the space between fences. Nearby, the village continues its routines. Fields are worked. Animals are fed. Children play. Occasionally, smoke rises from the forest, thin and pale, easily mistaken for cooking fires or brush burning. The locals tell themselves stories that allow them to sleep at night. It is not their business. It is probably a military matter. Better not to know. As weeks pass, the camp takes on a clearer form. Watchtowers rise above the trees, their silhouettes visible only at certain angles. From within, guards will see everything. From without, the towers disappear into the vertical lines of the forest. Roads are laid that lead nowhere else. Once you turn onto them, there is no reason to continue unless you belong there. This place is given a name, borrowed from the nearby village. To the planners, it is simply a designation, a point in a network. To the victims who will be sent here, the name will mean nothing at first. It will not appear in rumors the way other places do. It will not carry the weight of history yet. It is just another stop, another unknown destination on a list that keeps changing. But for the system, Sobibor is a refinement, a chance to implement everything learned so far. Smaller than some camps, but no less lethal. Designed to kill with speed and discretion. It is meant to operate smoothly, without the bottlenecks and complications encountered elsewhere. In this forest, the planners believe they have found the perfect balance between concealment and access. The first test will come soon. Trains are already being scheduled. Ghettos have been marked for liquidation. Lists are drawn up. Orders issued. People will be told to pack essentials, to prepare for resettlement. They will walk to assembly points carrying what little they are allowed, hearts pounding with fear and hope tangled together. They will board trains believing that somewhere ahead there is work, food, survival. When they arrive here, the forest will greet them first. The smell of pine, the quiet, the sense that the world has narrowed to this clearing. Many will feel a strange relief that the journey is over, that they are no longer crammed into darkness. That relief will last only moments. Because Sobibor is not just a place. It is an answer to a question the regime has been asking for years. How to kill without being seen. How to erase without leaving marks. How to make death routine. Every tree, every fence, every path here is part of that answer. What the planners cannot see from their maps is how fragile even the most carefully chosen location can be once human beings are forced inside it. Isolation cuts both ways. Silence can hide screams, but it can also sharpen listening. Forests can conceal crimes, but they can also shelter secrets, whispers, plans. In choosing a place designed for disappearance, the regime has also chosen a place where memory may cling stubbornly, rooted deep in the soil. Soon, the first train will slow on the spur line. Brakes will hiss, doors will be opened, and the forest that seemed so still will begin to witness what it was chosen for. The first structures do not look like instruments of death. They look ordinary. Rough timber, simple nails, freshly cut wood that still smells alive. In the early mornings, mist hangs low between the trees, and the sound of hammering echoes briefly before being swallowed by the forest. If someone were to stumble upon the site at this stage, they might think it was a labor camp, a depot, perhaps a temporary military installation. That illusion is intentional. Sobibor is not built to announce itself. It is built to deceive. Construction moves with quiet urgency. Orders come down with strict timelines, and delays are not tolerated. Materials arrive by rail and truck under guard, unloaded quickly, inventoried, then moved deeper into the trees. Everything unnecessary is excluded. There is no concern for comfort, no thought given to longevity beyond what is required to fulfill its purpose. This camp is not meant to endure. It is meant to function. The layout takes shape piece by piece, each decision guided by lessons learned elsewhere. The planners have studied panic. They understand that people are most dangerous when they realize the truth too soon. So the camp is divided deliberately, broken into zones that prevent anyone from seeing more than they are meant to. Space itself becomes a weapon. Walls and fences do not merely confine bodies, they fragment knowledge. Near the rail spur, an arrival area is established. This is where the illusion will begin. The ground is leveled. Paths are cleared. A platform is constructed just long enough to unload a train efficiently. There will be no grand station building, no crowds, no announcements. Just a controlled space where armed men can direct movement with shouts and gestures. The arrival zone must feel temporary, procedural, not final. From here, the camp stretches inward like a funnel. Camp 1 is constructed to house those prisoners selected for forced labor, though even this term is misleading. Their work will not sustain industry or agriculture. It will sustain killing. They build barracks for themselves under watch, sleeping on wooden bunks, packed tightly, living under the constant knowledge that their survival is conditional and brief. They are spared for now because the system requires hands. Beyond this lies Camp 2, a transitional space carefully designed to strip people of identity. Undressing barracks rise here, simple structures where deportees will be ordered to remove their clothes and surrender belongings. Hooks are installed. Benches are placed. Signs are prepared with neat lettering. Instructions written in calm language. Everything is staged to suggest order and hygiene. Showers, delousing, processing, words chosen to soothe. The planners understand the power of routine. If something looks organized, people assume it is legitimate. Guards will be instructed to act efficiently, not cruelly, at least at first. Violence is reserved for moments when deception fails. Ideally, it never will. Speed is essential. The longer people remain in these spaces, the greater the chance they will sense the truth. Connecting Camp 2 to what lies beyond is a narrow corridor cut through the forest. It is fenced on both sides, woven thickly with branches and pine boughs, so nothing can be seen beyond arm's length. This path will later earn a name whispered with dread, but at this stage, it is just another feature on a blueprint. Its purpose is simple: to move people forward without allowing them to look back or sideways. Curves are added to prevent long sight lines. The corridor feels endless, even though it is not. At the far end of this corridor, Camp 3 is constructed. This is the heart of Sobibor, though no one sent here is meant to know it exists. It is physically separated from the rest of the camp, hidden by trees and fencing. Even many guards will not enter this area regularly. Knowledge is restricted to a small number of men whose job it is to keep the machinery running. Here, the gas chambers are built. They are not elaborate structures. They are functional, squat buildings with reinforced walls and heavy doors. Inside, the rooms are small, deliberately so, designed to pack bodies tightly. The walls are sealed. Pipes are installed. An engine room is prepared nearby. The killing method is already established elsewhere. Carbon monoxide pumped into enclosed spaces until breathing becomes impossible. It is a method chosen not for mercy, but for control. The placement of these buildings is precise. Sound must not carry back toward the arrival area. The screams that will erupt once the doors close are considered a risk. Engines will be run loudly to mask them. Trees are left standing to absorb noise. The forest once again serves the system, insulating atrocity from the outside world. Beyond the chambers, pits are dug. At first, they are meant to serve as mass graves. The soil here is sandy, easy to excavate. Bulldozers and forced laborers work side by side under guard. The earth is turned over again and again, creating spaces that will soon be filled with bodies. There is no ceremony, no markers. The ground is simply prepared to receive what the trains will deliver. As construction progresses, the system becomes clearer to those overseeing it. Sobibor is not large compared to some camps, but does not need to be. Its power lies in throughput. Trains arrive. People are processed. Bodies are disposed of. Trains depart. The cycle repeats. Everything unnecessary to this cycle is eliminated. Even the camp size is a form of camouflage. Smaller, quieter, easier to hide. The men in charge walk the site, inspecting progress, adjusting details. A door here needs to open outward, not inward. A fence there needs reinforcement. A path must be narrowed to prevent groups from turning around. Every modification is aimed at reducing friction. Friction slows killing. Friction creates resistance. To staff the camp, barracks are built for guards and SS officers, set apart from prisoner areas. These spaces are relatively comfortable. Beds, stoves, storage rooms. The separation reinforces hierarchy. Those who kill must feel protected, insulated from the consequences of their actions. Alcohol will be supplied. Entertainment arranged. Anything to dull conscience and maintain obedience. Forced laborers are brought in early to complete construction and prepare the camp for operation. They work under constant threat, beaten for mistakes, executed for defiance. They see more than most, and because of that, they are doomed. The system does not tolerate witnesses. Those who build the camp know they will not live to see its end. Training begins even before the first transport arrives. Guards rehearse unloading procedures. Commands are practiced. Timing is measured. How long does it take to empty a train? How quickly can clothes be sorted? How fast can a group be moved through the corridor? Stopwatches are used. Killing becomes a matter of minutes and seconds. The planners believe they are perfecting something. Each camp improves upon the last. Each iteration removes inefficiencies. Sobibor is intended to be smoother, quieter, more controlled. There is pride in this refinement, though it is never spoken aloud. Reports sent up the chain emphasize readiness. The site is nearly operational. Minor details remain. As summer approaches, the forest changes. Leaves thicken. Insects hum. Heat builds in enclosed spaces. These conditions are noted clinically. Heat increases discomfort. Discomfort increases compliance, if properly managed. Water will be restricted. Shade controlled. Everything is calculated to keep people moving forward. When construction is finally declared complete, the camp stands hidden and waiting. From above, it is barely visible. From the road, it looks like nothing at all. A cluster of trees, a fence glimpsed through branches, a rail spur that seems to lead nowhere important. Sobibor has been built to erase itself, even as it prepares to erase others. Orders go out confirming readiness. The system that began as an idea has now taken physical form. Wood, wire, engines, paths, all aligned toward a single outcome. There is no test run with empty cars. The first test will involve living people. Somewhere, lists are finalized. Dates are set. The trains are already moving. And as Sobibor waits in the forest, complete and silent, the machinery of Operation Reinhard prepares to feed it. The camp does not run itself. Wood and wire can only do so much. Engines need hands to start them. Doors need men willing to close them. Orders need voices that will be obeyed. Behind the fences and among the trees, Sobibor comes alive not because it is built, but because certain men step into positions of authority and decide, day after day, how death will be administered. They arrive in stages, some transferred quietly from other assignments, others promoted into roles they barely understand at first. Their uniforms are crisp, their boots polished. Most of them are not born killers. They are clerks, policemen, mechanics, failed businessmen, minor officials who have learned that loyalty matters more than morality. Sobibor does not demand brilliance. It demands compliance. At the top of the hierarchy stands the camp commandant, a man chosen not for imagination, but for discipline. Franz Stangl has already served in earlier killing programs, where deception and efficiency were honed into routine. He understands how to keep subordinates focused, how to maintain order without drawing attention. His demeanor is calm, almost bureaucratic. He speaks softly, rarely raises his voice. Violence, when it comes from him, is controlled, deliberate, instructional. Stangel's authority is absolute within the camp. He answers upward to higher SS offices, but inside Sobibor his word is law. He oversees schedules, discipline, punishment, and performance. Killing is not framed as cruelty, but as duty. Mistakes are not moral failures. They are inefficiencies. Men who hesitate are corrected. Men who excel are rewarded with praise, alcohol, leave. Beneath him, a small cadre of SS officers manage the daily operations. Each has a defined role, a slice of the machinery to control. Some handle arrivals, timing the unloading of trains and the separation of people. Others oversee forced labor details, ensuring prisoners work until exhaustion without collapsing too soon. A select few supervise the killing area itself, their access restricted, their knowledge compartmentalized. These men learn quickly to speak in euphemisms. No one says killing when they can say processing. No one says bodies when they can say units. Language acts as insulation, a way to create distance between action and consequence. Within this vocabulary, murder becomes abstract, something that happens because the system demands it. The guards are drilled to maintain the illusion. At arrivals, they are instructed to shout firmly, but not hysterically. Panic is dangerous. Calm keeps people moving. A smile at the right moment can be as effective as a rifle. Victims are addressed politely at first, ordered to remember their belongings, to follow instructions carefully. The lie must feel convincing, or everything falls apart. To supplement the SS, a separate force is brought in, auxiliary guards recruited from occupied territories, many of them former prisoners of war. They are trained brutally and quickly, conditioned to obey without question. Their role is enforcement. They strike, herd, shoot. Their presence adds a layer of separation between the SS and the physical act of violence, making it easier for the men in charge to see themselves as managers rather than executioners. These guards are often unpredictable, fueled by fear, resentment, and the knowledge that their own survival depends on obedience. Sobibor thrives on this volatility. Terror radiates downward, ensuring compliance at every level. Prisoners fear the guards. Guards fear the SS. The SS fear failure. The chain is unbroken. The camp command structure is intentionally rigid. Orders flow downward, never sideways. Questioning is interpreted as weakness, compassion as disloyalty. Men learn quickly that advancement comes from efficiency, not reflection. A guard who hesitates to strike is reassigned or punished. One who kills decisively is noticed. Alcohol plays a role. After long days, bottles circulate among the officers. Drinking dulls memory, sharpens bravado. Stories are told, jokes shared. Laughter echoes from barracks not far from where screams are still fading into the trees. This contrast is not accidental. It reinforces the separation between those who kill and those who are killed, between life inside the fence and death beyond it. Punishment is swift and public. A prisoner who falters at work is beaten in front of others. An attempted escape is met with executions designed to terrify. Sometimes, punishment is arbitrary, chosen simply to remind everyone who holds power. The camp operates on unpredictability. Fear is easier to manage when it is constant and undefined. Within this structure, forced laborers are assigned roles that draw them dangerously close to the truth. Some sort clothing taken from the dead, hands brushing against still warm fabric, pockets heavy with photographs and letters. Others cut hair, gather shoes, stack belongings into neat piles that will be shipped back into the Reich. A few are made to work near the killing area, their tasks unspeakable, their fates sealed. These prisoners are watched closely. They are both essential and expendable. They know too much. Their survival is temporary, extended only as long as they remain useful. Selection is constant. A man who grows too weak, too slow, too aware, is removed and replaced. The system eats its own laborers as efficiently as it eats its victims. Among the SS, rivalry simmers beneath the surface. Promotions are scarce. Recognition matters. Each man wants his section to run smoothly, to produce results that reflect well on him. Reports are written carefully, emphasizing success, downplaying problems. Failures are blamed on subordinates, on prisoners, on circumstances beyond control. Responsibility is always deflected upward or downward, never inward. Despite the structure, cracks appear. Some guards drink too much. Others grow reckless. A few show signs of strain, nightmares, sudden outbursts, moments of silence that stretch too long. These signs are monitored. Men who cannot cope are transferred or reassigned. Sobibor does not accommodate weakness. It requires function. The commandant understands this and manages his men accordingly. Rotations are planned. Leave is granted strategically. Praise is given sparingly but meaningfully. The goal is to maintain a workforce capable of killing day after day without collapse. The success of the camp depends not only on engines and fences, but on the psychological conditioning of those who operate them. Interactions between guards and prisoners are tightly controlled. Any sign of familiarity is discouraged. Names are replaced with numbers or shouted commands. Prisoners are referred to as units, loads, pieces. Dehumanization is not just for the victims. It is a tool to protect the perpetrators from recognizing what they are doing. Still, moments occur that disrupt the routine. A child clings too tightly to a parent. A woman refuses to undress. A man looks a guard in the eye and asks a question that has no safe answer. In these moments, violence erupts suddenly and brutally, restoring order through fear. The lesson is reinforced: obedience or death. As Sobibor begins operations, the command structure settles into rhythm. Trains arrive. Orders are shouted. Killing proceeds. Reports are filed. The men learn to measure time differently. Not in hours, but in transports. A good day is one with no disruptions. A bad day is one where panic slows the process. From the outside, the camp remains invisible. From the inside, it is a machine held together by human decisions, human cruelty, human fear. Every death passes through multiple layers of choice, though no one involved is encouraged to see it that way. Responsibility is diluted across ranks until it feels weightless. What none of these men fully grasp is that by concentrating so much power, by forcing so many people into close proximity with truth and terror, they are creating a volatile environment. Control can suppress resistance for a time, but it cannot erase memory or desperation. Each command shouted, each blow struck, each life ended adds pressure to a system that relies on absolute obedience. For now, Sobibor functions as designed. The men in charge believe they have mastered the process. The hierarchy is firm. The routines are established. The killing continues without pause. But beneath the surface, among those forced to keep the machinery running, awareness is growing. Eyes watch patterns. Ears catch fragments of conversation. Minds begin to understand what this place truly is. And once understanding takes root, authority alone may no longer be enough to contain what follows. The journey begins long before the train doors close. It begins with an order read aloud in a ghetto square, a notice pasted crookedly to a wall, a knock that comes before dawn. People are told to prepare for relocation, for work in the East, for a temporary transfer that will ease overcrowding and hunger. They are instructed to bring essentials, to pack lightly, to leave keys with neighbors who will watch their homes. The words are rehearsed, delivered with an authority that leaves little room for doubt. Resistance feels pointless. Hope, thin and fragile, does the rest. On the morning of departure, streets fill with movement. Families carry bundles tied with string, suitcases worn thin from years of use. Children cling to hands, confused but quiet, sensing the tension in the air. Old men walk slower than the rest, breath visible even in warmer months, eyes fixed on the ground. The smell of fear mixes with sweat and dust. Guards shout. Dogs bark. The column moves forward, step by step, toward the station. At the platform, freight cars wait. Not passenger coaches with windows and benches, but wooden wagons meant for cattle, their doors already open, their interiors dark. People hesitate when they see them. Some ask questions. The answers are sharp and immediate. Hurry. Inside. There is no time. The crowd is pushed forward, bodies pressed together as they climb into the wagons. Once full, the doors slide shut with a heavy sound that echoes longer than it should. Bolts are drawn. Darkness settles. Inside the car, space disappears. People stand chest aback, unable to sit, barely able to move. The air grows hot quickly, thick with breath and fear. Someone begins to pray. Someone else knocks weakly on the wall. Children cry until their voices break. As the train lurches forward, the floor vibrates beneath their feet, a reminder that the world outside is still moving, even as their own seems to shrink. Hours pass, sometimes days. There is no water, no food. Buckets overflow. The stench becomes unbearable. People faint and cannot fall because there is nowhere to fall to. Bodies remain upright, held in place by the press of others. When the train stops briefly, no one knows where they are. Doors remain sealed. The whistle blows again, and the journey continues. When the train finally slows for good, the change is subtle at first. The grinding of wheels eases. The car jolts once, twice, then stops. Silence rushes in, broken only by coughing and muffled sobs. For a moment, nothing happens. Then voices outside. Orders shouted in a language some recognize, others do not. Boots on gravel. The sound of metal on metal as bolts are thrown back. Light floods and as doors slide open. People blink, shielding their eyes, gasping for fresh air that smells of pine and earth. Guards shout for them to get out quickly, to leave luggage behind for now. There is no time to think. People stumble down onto a narrow platform or directly onto the ground, legs weak, head spinning. Some collapse immediately. They are pulled aside or beaten until they stand again. The scene is strangely calm. There is no chaos, no visible violence at first glance. Guards are firm but controlled. An officer steps forward and delivers a short speech, reassuring and practiced. They have arrived at a transit camp, he says. A place to rest, to shower, to be processed before being sent on to work assignments. Families will be reunited afterward. Belongings will be returned. Cooperation is emphasized. Everything depends on following instructions. This lie is the most important tool the camp possesses. It buys minutes, sometimes hours. It keeps people moving forward without panic. Many want to believe it. After the journey, after the fear, any promise of order feels like relief. People straighten their clothes. Mothers smooth children's hair. Men adjust coats they will soon be forced to remove. The forest around them is quiet, almost peaceful, reinforcing the illusion that this cannot be the place where everything ends. The crowd is divided quickly. Men to one side, women and children to another. The separation is explained as administrative, temporary. Husbands kiss wives. Parents reassure children they will see each other soon. Some cling too tightly and are struck with rifle butts until they let go. The pain is sudden, shocking, but brief. The line moves on. Those deemed too old or too sick are noticed immediately. A limp, a cough, a slow step. They are directed aside, told they will receive special care. Medical attention. Easier transport. The tone remains polite. Efficient. A handful of prisoners already working in the camp assist. Their faces blank, their movements mechanical. They do not speak unless spoken to. As people are herded forward, the environment narrows. Fences appear, woven thick with branches. Paths curve so that no one can see very far ahead. Guards stand at intervals, weapons visible, eyes watchful. The forest presses close on all sides, shutting out the wider world. For many, the sense of being cut off settles in now, a quiet dread that does not yet have words. In the undressing area, the process continues. Orders are shouted with precision. Remove clothing. Tie shoes together. Remember where you placed your belongings. Everything will be returned after the shower. Signs reinforce the instructions, written neatly, as if this were a legitimate facility. Some hesitate. Guards intervene. Clothing piles up quickly, forming mounds of fabric that still hold the warmth and smell of their owners. Nakedness strips away more than protection from the cold. It erodes dignity, identity, resistance. People avert their eyes, arms wrapped around themselves. Children cry. Mothers try to cover them, whispering reassurances they barely believe. The ground is rough under bare feet. The air feels suddenly colder, sharper. At every step, the process is designed to prevent stopping. There is no time to gather thoughts, to ask questions, to notice inconsistencies. Movement is constant. Forward. Faster. The fear that has been simmering begins to boil, but it is still contained, managed by speed and confusion. The narrow corridor ahead looks like a path through the woods. Fenced, shaded, twisting. Guards urge people into it, reassuring them they're almost finished. Just showers, then food. The promise of relief pushes them on. Those who hesitate are shoved from behind. The line compresses, bodies press together once more, this time moving under open sky. As they walk, sounds change. The forest is no longer silent. There's a distant hum, mechanical, steady. Some think it is a generator, powering the camp. Others do not register it at all, too focused on keeping children close, on not tripping, on breathing through fear. The smell shifts, faint at first, then more noticeable. Something sharp, oily, unpleasant, carried on the breeze. At the end of the path, a low building comes into view. Doors stand open. Guards shout again, louder now. Inside. Quickly. The room fills rapidly, bodies pressed against walls, against each other. The door slams shut. Darkness returns, deeper than before. The hum outside grows louder. For most, understanding comes too late, in fragments. The air becomes difficult to breathe. People gasp. Hands claw at walls. Screams erupt, raw and animal. Mothers lift children, desperate to give them air that does not exist. Panic explodes in the confined space, bodies crushing together as lungs burn and minds fracture under the weight of realization. Outside, guards wait. Some light cigarettes. Others watch the time. The engine runs. Minutes pass. The screaming fades into thuds, then into nothing at all. When the door is opened again, the room is silent. This cycle repeats again and again. Trains arrive. Lies are told. People are stripped, herded, killed. The rhythm becomes routine. Arrival. Separation. Death. Removal. The camp operates like a conveyor belt, each step feeding the next. There is no pause to mourn, no acknowledgement of what has occurred. Only the next transport, already on its way. For the few prisoners forced to work here, arrival days are the worst. They see faces full of hope, confusion, fear. They hear questions they cannot answer. They recognize accents, languages, songs sung softly to children. They know, with terrible certainty, that none of these people will survive the day. Their own survival depends on silence, on obedience, on doing what is demanded of them without breaking. Some arrivals sense the truth almost immediately. A look exchanged, a smell recognized, a sound that does not belong in a place of showers. They try to resist. They shout warnings. They fight. Violence erupts swiftly and decisively. Gunshots crack through the trees. Bodies fall. The line moves on. Resistance is isolated and crushed before it can spread. Most do not resist, not because they are weak, but because the system is designed to overwhelm the senses, to exhaust the mind, to replace thought with motion. By the time the truth becomes undeniable, escape is no longer possible. The fences are too high, the guards too close, the forest too vast and unknown. At the rail spur, empty wagons are cleaned quickly. Belongings are sorted and cataloged. Hair is cut, gold teeth extracted, valuables collected. Everything has a place in the system. Nothing is wasted. Even death is exploited fully. By the time the next train arrives, there is little sign of what has just occurred. The platform is quiet again. The forest settles. Smoke drifts faintly, then dissipates. Sobibor waits, ready to repeat the process as many times as required. What the arrivals never see is how many have come before them, how many will come after. Each transport believes it is alone in its fate, unique in its terror. The system depends on this isolation, on the idea that suffering is individual, not collective. But among the prisoners forced to witness these arrivals day after day, something else is forming. Memory accumulates. Patterns are noticed. The lie loses its power. And as the trains keep coming, bringing thousands more into the forest, the question begins to surface in whispered thoughts and stolen glances. If arrival here means death, then what does survival demand? The path is narrow enough that shoulders brush the woven walls on either side. Branches bend inward, needles prick skin, and the ground slopes just slightly upward, forcing tired legs to work harder with every step. From the outside, it looks like nothing more than a trail through the forest. From within, it feels endless. This is the final corridor, the space where the lie is meant to hold together for just a few more minutes. Those who walk here do not know its name yet, but later it will be whispered with dread by the few who survive. The tube. The last road. The moment people enter it, the world closes in. Light filters through leaves and broken patterns, casting moving shadows that make distance impossible to judge. The air is warmer here, thick with the smell of pine sap, sweat, and something else that does not belong in a forest. Guards line the outside of the fencing, visible only in fragments through gaps and branches. Rifles are held at ease, but ready. Dogs strain against leashes, sensing fear before it breaks into sound. The corridor is designed to move people forward without allowing them to stop. It curves gently, again and again, preventing anyone from seeing what lies ahead or behind. Each bend steals context, erases reference points. Parents tighten their grip on children. Adults glance back instinctively, but see only the same wall of branches they passed moments ago. There is no way to measure progress. Only motion. Orders echo down the path, sharp and urgent. Faster. Keep moving. No stopping. The tone has shifted now. Less reassurance. More command. The guards know the window for deception is closing. Too much delay, and panic might erupt. Panic is dangerous here. Panic means bodies pushing sideways, testing fences, shouting warnings that could ripple backward through the line. The corridor narrows at certain points, forcing people in a single file. This is intentional. It breaks up groups, prevents collective action, isolates individuals within the crowd. A mother forced to step behind her child reaches forward desperately. Fingers brushing air before a guard's shout snaps her attention back. She stumbles, nearly falls, and is shoved upright by the pressure of those behind her. As they walk, sounds change. The forest's natural quiet is replaced by a mechanical hum that grows louder with each step. It vibrates faintly through the ground, felt more than heard at first. Some mistake it for machinery powering the camp, generators for lights or pumps. Others feel a tightening in their chests they cannot explain. The hum is steady, relentless, like breathing without lungs. The smell intensifies. Oil. Exhaust. Something acrid that burns the back of the throat. A few people begin to whisper, "Is this really a shower? Why does it smell like this? Why are there no pipes visible? No steam, no water?" Questions form, but die quickly, smothered by fear and the press of bodies. Speaking feels dangerous here, like breaking a spell. Guards move closer to the fence, their shadows flickering across the path. They shout again, louder, their voices sharp with impatience. Anyone who slows is struck. Not beaten yet, just enough to restore momentum. The violence is measured. Pain is a tool, not an indulgence. For those forced to work in the camp, this corridor is unbearable to watch. They know where it leads. They know that every face passing through it will be gone within minutes. They avert their eyes when possible, fixating on the ground, on their own feet, on anything that keeps them from seeing recognition in the eyes of those walking past. Some recognize accents, clothing styles, prayers murmured under breath. Sometimes they recognize names. Children are the most dangerous element in the system. They cry. They ask questions. They sense when adults are lying. Guards are instructed to keep them moving quickly, to separate them from distractions. A crying child can slow a line, create hesitation. Mothers try to hush them, whispering promises they no longer believe. Soon, there will be no need to hush anyone. As the path continues, the sense of isolation deepens. The forest beyond the fence feels unreachable, unreal. Even if someone could break through, where would they go? The trees stretch endlessly, unfamiliar, hostile. The guards know this. The corridor does not just lead to death. It kills the idea of escape before the body ever stops moving. Near the end of the path, the hum becomes loud enough to drown out most other sounds. It fills the head, vibrates in the chest, makes conversation impossible. This is the moment when understanding begins to dawn for some. Not fully, not clearly, but enough to trigger instinct. A few begin to resist. They slow deliberately. They shout warnings. They try to turn around. The response is immediate and brutal. Gunshots crack through the corridor, echoing sharply off the fencing and trees. Bodies fall. Blood darkens the sandy ground. The line freezes for a fraction of a second, then surges forward under the force of guards shouting and firing again. The message is unmistakable. Forward is the only direction allowed. Those who fall are dragged aside, removed quickly, their bodies disappearing through gates in the fence. There is no pause, no acknowledgement. The corridor absorbs the violence and continues to deliver people toward its end. At last, the building comes into view. Low, squat, unremarkable. Its entrance is wide enough to admit groups quickly. There are no windows at eye level, no signs to explain its purpose. Guards position themselves at the doorway, shouting orders to move inside faster. The urgency is palpable now. The lie is no longer spoken. There is no mention of showers or resettlement. Only commands. Inside, the space is smaller than expected. Walls press close. The ceiling feels low. People are packed tightly, forced to stand shoulder to shoulder, chest to back. There's barely room to breathe. The door slams shut with a metallic finality that sends a shock through the crowd. Darkness falls again, heavier than before. The hum outside rises to a roar. The air changes almost immediately. It grows thick, unbreathable, burning. People gasp, then choke. Panic explodes in a way it could not in the corridor. Screams tear at throats already starved for air. Hands claw at walls, at doors that do not open. Bodies surge, crushing those at the center as lungs seize and vision blurs. Children are lifted overhead, desperate attempts to find air where none exists. Mothers scream names until their voices break. Men pound fists against steel, skin splitting, nails tearing. The noise is overwhelming, a wall of sound that the forest cannot fully absorb. Outside, engines run louder, deliberately masking the screams, turning them into a distant, formless roar. Minutes stretch into something unrecognizable. Time loses meaning inside the chamber. There is only breath, or the absence of it. One by one, voices falter. Bodies sag, held upright only by the press of others. Eyes roll back. Muscles spasm. Then stillness begins to spread, unevenly, until movement becomes rare. When the engine is finally shut down and the door opened, silence spills out. The air is foul, heavy with death. Those assigned to the next task move in quickly, their faces hardened, their movements automatic. There is no space for hesitation. The work must continue. Bodies are pulled free, disentangled, dragged across the floor. The heat inside the chamber lingers, clinging to skin. The dead are stacked, searched, stripped further. Gold teeth are removed. Hair is cut. Anything of value is collected. Nothing is left to chance. Everything is accounted for. For the prisoners forced to do this work, the corridor is the worst part of the day. Not the chamber, not the bodies, but the path itself. The moment when people are still alive, still hoping, still asking questions. It is here that the cruelty feels most naked, most deliberate. It is here that some begin to break. Yet the system does not pause for grief or exhaustion. Another group is already entering the corridor. Another engine is warming. The tube fills again with footsteps, whispers, sobs. The cycle repeats with horrifying precision. From the outside, Sobibor remains quiet. Smoke drifts briefly, then fades. Trains arrive and depart on schedule. Reports note successful processing, minimal disruption. The planners are satisfied. The corridor is doing its job. It moves people forward without resistance, delivering them exactly where they are meant to go. What they do not account for is what this corridor also creates. It forces witnesses to see too much. It concentrates terror, despair, and understanding into a single narrow space. Those who survive long enough to walk it repeatedly begin to understand patterns. Timing, guard positions, moments of vulnerability. The tube is meant to erase identity, to reduce people to bodies moving toward death. But it also compresses experience, intensifies awareness. Every scream, every gunshot, every command echoes in memory. The forest absorbs sound, but it cannot absorb understanding. As the corridor continues to funnel thousands toward the chamber, something else moves along with them, unseen but growing stronger. Knowledge, certainty. And with certainty comes a question that refuses to disappear, even in a place built to erase all questions. If this path leads only to death, then how long before someone chooses to stop walking? The door closes with a sound that does not echo, so much as seal. It is a heavy, final noise, metal meeting metal, followed by the unmistakable scrape of a bolt sliding into place. Inside, darkness presses in immediately. There are no windows, no cracks, no sense of direction. The air is already stale, thick with the breath of dozens packed shoulder to shoulder. Skin touches skin. Sweat slicks arms and backs. For a few seconds, there is only confusion, the stunned silence that follows sudden confinement. Then the first voice rises. Then another. Then panic floods the space like water. The room is smaller than anyone expected. The walls are cold, rough, damp in places. The ceiling feels low enough to touch. People raise their hands instinctively, searching for space that does not exist. Someone stumbles, but cannot fall because there is nowhere to fall. A child begins to scream, sharp and piercing, and the sound ricochets violently in the enclosed space, magnified by fear. Mothers pull children close, pressing faces into chests, whispering reassurances that fracture as they are spoken. Outside, an engine starts. At first, the sound is distant, a low mechanical rumble that vibrates faintly through the walls and floor. Inside the chamber, some mistake it for part of the camp infrastructure, perhaps the heating system for showers, a generator powering lights that never come on. Others feel something shift inside them, an instinctive alarm that cannot yet form into words. The air grows warmer, heavier. Each breath feels less satisfying than the last. Then the gas begins to enter the room. It is not visible at first. There is no dramatic cloud, no sudden change. It seeps in quietly, insidiously, displacing oxygen molecule by molecule. Carbon monoxide is merciless precisely because it cannot be seen or smelled clearly. It does not burn the lungs immediately. It starves them. People begin to feel dizzy. Heads spin. Knees weaken. Someone near the wall slides down slowly, eyes unfocused, mouth opening and closing in silent effort. Panic erupts fully now. People scream, shout, pound on the walls with fists that quickly grow slick with sweat and blood. Fingernails scrape against wood and metal, leaving pale marks that will soon be smeared away. Bodies surge toward the door, compressing those closest to it, until breathing becomes almost impossible. The sound inside the chamber is overwhelming, a wall of noise that feels alive, desperate, animal. Children are lifted overhead in frantic attempts to find air. Mothers strain on tiptoe, arms shaking, lungs burning, trying to keep small faces above the crushing mass. Some children go limp quickly, their bodies suddenly heavy, their cries cutting off mid-sound. Parents scream their names, shaking them, begging them to wake, to breathe, to hold on just a little longer. As oxygen disappears, the body begins to betray itself. Vision narrows, ears ring, the heart races wildly, pumping harder in a futile attempt to deliver air that no longer exists. People gasp, deep, ragged inhalations that only draw on more poison. Confusion deepens into terror. Thoughts scatter. Prayer fragments spill from mouths in half-remembered phrases, languages overlapping, voices cracking as throats dry. Some collapse faster than others. The elderly and the sick succumb quickly, their bodies sliding downward, creating gaps that are instantly filled by others stumbling into them. The pressure increases. Those still conscious feel ribs bending, lungs squeezed from all sides. Each breath becomes a battle, fought against both the gas and the weight of other human beings. Outside, guards wait. They do not watch the chamber closely. They have learned not to. Some look at their watches, timing the process. Others smoke, leaning against fences, eyes drifting toward the trees. The engine continues to run, its steady roar designed to mask the screams that escape despite the walls. The forest absorbs much of the sound, but not all of it. On certain days, when the wind shifts, cries carry farther than intended. When that happens, the engine is revved higher. Inside, consciousness flickers. People fall on one another, bodies sagging, muscles twitching involuntarily. Foam appears at mouths. Limbs jerk. A few attempt to climb over others in blind desperation, only to be pulled back down by gravity and the press of flesh. The air is now completely unbreathable. Every instinct screams for escape, but there is nowhere to go. Minutes pass, though inside the chamber time has ceased to exist. There is only sensation, burning lungs, pounding heart, fading vision. One by one, voices fall silent. Screams turn into hoarse gasps, then into nothing. Movement slows. Bodies stiffen in the positions they fell, frozen mid-reach, mid-prayer, mid-embrace. Eventually, there's only the engine. When it is finally shut off, the sudden quiet feels unnatural, almost shocking. Outside, guards wait a moment longer, trained to allow complete death. Then the bolt is drawn back. The door opens. The sight inside is something the human mind resists fully absorbing. Bodies are packed together so tightly that they remain standing, held upright by one another, even in death. Faces are contorted, Mouths open, eyes staring or closed, features twisted by panic and suffocation. The heat inside the chamber is intense, the air thick with the smell of excrement, vomit, sweat, and death. Those forced to work this area moving quickly. Speed is essential. The next group is already being herded toward the corridor. The dead must be removed, the chamber cleared, the process reset. There is no time for hesitation, no room for reaction. The work is brutal, relentless. Bodies are pulled apart, disentangled from one another. Limbs are stiff, sometimes locked together, requiring force to separate. Skin is warm to the touch. In some cases, people appear merely asleep, their expressions peaceful now that the struggle has ended. This illusion does not last long. Rigor mortis begins quickly in the cramped heat. The workers drag bodies across the floor, out of the chamber, into the open air where the smell is marginally less suffocating. Here, the next stage begins. Hair is cut, if it has not already been taken. Gold teeth are pried from mouths with pliers, a task that requires strength and detachment. Rings are removed from swollen fingers, sometimes by force. Nothing of value is allowed to remain. The dead are stacked, counted, moved toward pits dug earlier, or toward burning sites that will soon replace burial. The sand beneath them darkens with fluids. Flies gather quickly. Guards shout to keep moving, to work faster. Anyone who slows risks being beaten or worse. The message is constant and clear. Your survival depends on efficiency. For those performing this labor, the psychological toll is immense. Many have been in Sobibor long enough to understand that this work is temporary mercy. They know they will eventually be replaced, killed to eliminate witnesses. Every body they drag reminds them of their own fate. Some recognize faces from the corridor. Some recognize neighbors, relatives, friends. There is no time to grieve. Grief is dangerous. Grief slows hands. The chamber itself is cleaned between groups. Blood, vomit, excrement are washed away as quickly as possible. The walls are scrubbed. The floor is hosed down. Any sign of struggle must be erased before the next group enters. The room must look neutral again, functional, ready. The illusion must be restored, even if only briefly. As the day wears on, this cycle repeats relentlessly. Group after group is funneled through the corridor, into the chamber, into death. The engine runs almost continuously. The air around the camp takes on a faint, persistent haze. Smoke rises intermittently from burial pits or pyres. It smells sweet and sickening, impossible to ignore for those close enough. For the guards and SS officers, the killing becomes routine. They speak casually while it happens, discussing meals, leave, promotions. The chamber is just another part of the camp's operation, no more remarkable than a storeroom or barracks. Detachment is encouraged, rewarded. Those who show emotion are mocked or reprimanded. Yet even among the perpetrators, the chamber exerts a presence that cannot be entirely ignored. Some avoid the area when possible. Others become crueler, more volatile, lashing out at prisoners to assert control over feelings they cannot articulate. Alcohol consumption increases. Nights are loud with laughter that feels forced, brittle, edged with something darker. The chamber is the core of Sobibor, but it is also its most closely guarded secret. Few outsiders ever see it. Trains arrive and depart without explanation. Belongings are shipped out efficiently. Reports list numbers, not methods. To the wider world, Sobibor remains vague, undefined, another name in a growing list of places no one returns from. For the prisoners, however, the chamber defines reality. It is the end point of every arrival, the source of every smell, every scream that lingers in memory long after the engine stops. It shapes how they move, how they think, how they survive. They learn to read its rhythms, to anticipate when a group will finish, when the guards will be distracted, when a moment of vulnerability might appear. Knowledge accumulates here, in the most terrible way possible. Those forced to work see patterns others cannot. They notice how long the engine runs. They note guard rotations. They observe who enters the chamber area and who does not. Each detail lodges in the mind, painful but undeniable. The chamber is meant to annihilate completely, to leave nothing behind but bodies and ash. But it also creates witnesses, however temporary. It concentrates horror so intensely that it sharpens awareness rather than dulling it. Those who endure it day after day are changed irrevocably, pushed beyond fear into something harder, colder, more focused. As the killing continues, the system shows signs of strain. Burial pits fill quickly. The stench becomes harder to manage. Flies swarm. Nearby soil begins to shift as gases build beneath mass graves. Complaints are filed. Adjustments are ordered. The dead must be dealt with more efficiently. Plans are already forming to alter the process again, to refine it further. Bodies will be exhumed, burned, ash scattered, evidence erased more thoroughly. The chamber will continue to function, but its aftermath will change. Inside Sobibor, death is no longer an event. It is an environment. It seeps into everything: the air, the ground, the routines, the minds of those trapped within. For now, the chamber fulfills its purpose flawlessly, killing thousands with industrial precision. But the very efficiency that makes it so lethal also binds those who operate it into a shared, unbearable knowledge. And as the chamber keeps filling and emptying day after day, that knowledge does not disappear with the bodies. It stays. And in a place designed to leave no survivors, knowledge itself begins to feel dangerous. Morning arrives without light. The forest dims the sun so thoroughly that time is measured not by brightness, but by routine. Whistles cut through the air. Boots crunch on sand. Somewhere, an engine coughs to life. For those forced to live inside Sobibor, the day begins not with waking, but with being summoned back into the machinery that keeps the camp running. Survival here is not a gift. It is an assignment. The men who step out of the barracks know exactly why they are still alive. They have been chosen because their bodies are still strong enough to work, because their hands are useful, because the system requires them. For now, their lives exist on a narrow ledge, suspended between one transport and the next. Every morning they wonder if this will be the day they are replaced. Every night they lie down knowing they have helped death function one more time. Forced labor at Sobibor is not about production in any traditional sense. There are no factories, no fields, no quotas meant to sustain an economy. Every task here serves a single purpose: to accelerate, conceal, and maintain mass murder. Prisoners are not workers. They are components, inserted into the system until they wear out. Some are assigned to the arrival zone. Their job is to help unload transports, to carry luggage, to guide people toward the undressing barracks. They must look calm, obedient, almost reassuring. Guards rely on this. A prisoner who appears composed helps reinforce the lie. A trembling hand, a tearful face, these invite suspicion. And suspicion is punished immediately. These workers hear the same questions over and over. Where are we? When will we see our families again? Is there food? Is this a labor camp? They are forbidden from answering honestly. Silence is safer than speech. A shrug, a nod, a vague gesture forward. Anything that keeps the line moving. Sometimes a person recognizes them, calls out a name. In those moments, the worker must pretend not to hear. Recognition is dangerous. Recognition can get them killed. Others are assigned to the sorting area. Here, the belongings of the dead arrive in waves. Suitcases, coats, shoes, prayer books, photographs, children's toys. The air smells of fabric and fear. Each item carries traces of its owner: sweat, perfume, smoke. Workers sort methodically, trained to separate valuables from what will be reused or destroyed. Gold is extracted, currency counted, watches piled neatly. Hair is bundled, labeled, shipped away. The monotony is brutal. Handling the remnants of lives extinguished minutes earlier creates a constant, grinding dissonance. A child's shoe still warm from the foot that wore it. A letter folded carefully, never delivered. Workers are beaten if they pause too long, if their hands slow, if their faces betray emotion. Efficiency is survival. Feeling is a liability. The most feared assignments are closest to the killing area. These workers see what others are spared. They drag bodies from the chambers. They disentangle limbs locked together by death. They carry the dead to pits or pyres, their feet slipping in sand soaked dark with fluids. The smell clings to skin and hair no matter how much they scrub. It follows them into the barracks, into their dreams. There is no language adequate for this work. Words fracture under its weight. The body reacts first, retching, shaking, numbness. Then the mind adapts in ways that feel alien and terrifying. Some workers detach completely, moving as if underwater, their actions automatic. Others cling to rituals, counting steps, repeating prayers, focusing on breath, to keep from collapsing. The SS understand this psychological toll and exploit it deliberately. Workers are rotated between tasks, not to ease suffering, but to prevent bonds from forming. Attachment is dangerous. Solidarity breeds resistance. Isolation keeps people compliant. A man who spends too long with the same group might begin a talk, might begin a plan. So assignments shift without warning. Faces disappear overnight. Punishment is constant and arbitrary. A guard in a bad mood selects a prisoner at random. A missed step, a dropped item, a glance held too long. Any of these can trigger a beating or execution. The uncertainty is intentional. When punishment has no predictable cause, obedience becomes instinctive. Fear becomes ambient, like the forest air. Food is barely sufficient to sustain life. Thin soup, crusts of bread. Hunger is a constant ache that sharpens cruelty and desperation. Prisoners barter scraps, steal when they can, hide crumbs for later. Those caught are beaten or killed. Yet stealing is often the only way to survive another day. Morality erodes quickly when starvation dictates choices. Despite everything, relationships form in quiet, dangerous ways. A whispered warning, a shared bite of bread, a hand squeezed briefly in passing. These moments are small acts of defiance, assertions of humanity in a place designed to strip it away. They are also risks. Guards watch for signs of connection, for any hint that prisoners see each other as allies rather than competitors. Some laborers are assigned to maintenance, repairing fences, clearing paths, chopping wood. These tasks offer brief moments of distance from the killing area, but they come with their own dangers. Working near the perimeter tempts thoughts of escape. Guards anticipate this. Rifles are always trained. Dogs are never far. The forest beyond the fence looks inviting, but it is vast, unfamiliar, filled with patrols and hostile locals. Escape is possible, but survival beyond the fence is uncertain. The SS rely heavily on the prisoners' understanding of this reality. They know that even if someone escapes the camp itself, the world outside is not welcoming. Anti-Semitism, fear, and collaboration make hiding nearly impossible. The camp's power extends beyond its fences, into the surrounding countryside. The forced laborers live with the constant awareness that they are both victims and instruments. This knowledge corrodes from within. Many struggle with unbearable guilt, haunted by faces they ushered forward, by hands they pulled from chambers, by lies they helped sustain. The system is designed to make them complicit, to bind survival to participation. It is a cruelty layered atop cruelty. Yet within this horror, observation sharpens. Workers notice patterns because their lives depend on noticing patterns. They see when guards change shifts. They hear which officers are drunk, which are distracted. They learn how long engines run, how long it takes to clear chambers, how many minutes pass between transports. Knowledge becomes a quiet form of power. Some begin to understand that their temporary survival offers something else as well. Time. Time to think. Time to watch. Time to remember. In a place where most people are killed within hours, time itself is a rare resource. Those forced to work begin to sense that if anything is ever going to change, it will not come from the outside. It will have to come from within. Still, hope is dangerous. Many who allow themselves to imagine survival beyond tomorrow are crushed when selections come. Periodically, the SS decide a work group has grown too large, too familiar, too aware. A selection is announced casually. Names are called. Men step forward, hearts pounding, knowing exactly what it means. They are marched away and never seen again. New prisoners are brought in to replace them, bewildered, terrified, and quickly broken into the routine. This cycle reinforces a brutal truth. Usefulness is temporary. No amount of obedience guarantees survival. The system does not reward loyalty. It consumes it. Forced labor is not a path to life. It is a delay. And yet, delay matters. Each day alive is another day to see, to learn, to endure. Some prisoners begin to think in terms not of escape, but of disruption. If the system depends on them, perhaps it can be damaged through them. These thoughts are fragile, half-formed, shared only in whispers late at night, when guards are farther away and exhaustion dulls fear just enough to let ideas surface. For now, the work continues. Bodies are moved, belongings sorted, pads cleared, engines maintained. The camp functions smoothly because prisoners make it function. Their suffering is invisible in reports sent upward, reduced to efficiency metrics and body counts. But beneath the surface of routine, something is shifting. Forced labor has exposed too much truth to too many people. The lie that sustains Sobibor cannot survive prolonged exposure to those who see its every step. Awareness spreads quietly, passed through glances and gestures, through shared understanding that this place is not temporary, not survivable in the long term. If death is inevitable, some begin to wonder whether obedience is still the only option. And in a camp built on the assumption that terror alone can control human beings, that question is the most dangerous thing of all. Terror at Sobibor is not an accident or a byproduct. It is engineered, rehearsed, and applied with precision. It settles into the camp like a second atmosphere, invisible but ever-present, shaping every movement, every breath, every thought. From the moment prisoners wake to the moment they collapse onto wooden planks at night, fear is cultivated deliberately, reinforced through routine and sudden violence alike. This is not chaos. It is control. The guards understand that unpredictability is more powerful than constant brutality. If punishment followed clear rules, prisoners might adapt. They might calculate risks. Instead, Sobibor operates on shifting ground. One day, a guard ignores a mistake. The next, the same mistake earns a beating. A glance held too long can be fatal. Silence can be misinterpreted as defiance. Speech can be read as insolence. There is no safe behavior, only temporary luck. Roll calls are one of the most effective tools. Prisoners are lined up at dawn and dusk, forced to stand motionless for hours regardless of weather. Cold gnaws through thin clothing. Heat presses down, making heads swim. Anyone who sways or collapses is beaten or shot. The purpose is not merely to count bodies. It is to demonstrate power, to remind everyone that their lives are visible, measurable, and disposable. Executions are staged deliberately, often in public. A prisoner accused of theft or insubordination is dragged forward. The accusation may be real or invented. It does not matter. The guard shouts. The prisoner pleads or stands silent. A shot rings out. The body falls. The line is ordered to look. This is important. Looking is compulsory. Terror works best when witnessed. Sometimes punishment is collective. A single act of resistance results in reprisals against an entire work group. Food is withheld. Beatings are administered randomly. Selections are announced. This fractures solidarity, turning prisoners against one another, breeding suspicion and resentment. The system thrives when unity dissolves into fear-driven isolation. Guards use dogs as extensions of this terror. The animals are trained to lunge, to bark inches from faces, to bite on command. The threat alone is often enough. Prisoners flinch instinctively at the sound of growling, muscles tensing, hearts racing. Dogs do not hesitate. They do not question orders. They embody the cruelty of the system in fur and teeth. Control extends beyond physical violence into the psychological realm. Prisoners are forced to perform meaningless tasks, moving rocks from one pile to another, then back again, digging holes only to fill them in. These actions exhaust the body and erode the mind. Purpose disappears. Time stretches and warps. The message is clear. Your labor has no value beyond demonstrating obedience. Humiliation is constant. Prisoners are stripped naked for inspections, mocked for their bodies, their weakness, their fear. Guards laugh, joke, point. Laughter is weaponized. It reminds prisoners that their suffering is entertainment, that their pain registers as nothing more than amusement to those in power. Sleep offers no refuge. Nights are punctuated by shouting, gunfire, the sound of engines running late into darkness. Barracks are overcrowded, airless, alive with coughing and whispers. Lice crawl. Hunger gnaws. Dreams are short and violent, filled with images that bleed into waking moments. There is no true rest, only brief lapses in consciousness. Food is rationed carefully, just enough to keep bodies functional, never enough to restore strength. Hunger sharpens fear, clouds judgment, weakens resistance. Prisoners fight over scraps, hoard crumbs, steal when they can. Guards exploit this desperation, using food as leverage, rewarding informants, punishing those caught stealing with public brutality. The command structure reinforces terror by encouraging guards to assert dominance constantly. New guard are trained not just in procedure, but in cruelty. They learn which blows cause pain without immediate death, how to humiliate without breaking the flow of work. Sadism is tolerated, even encouraged, so long as it does not interfere with efficiency. Those who hesitate are corrected. Those who excel are praised. Yet terror is not uniform. It fluctuates, surges, recedes, creating a rhythm that keeps prisoners off balance. A calm morning might give way to sudden chaos. A relatively quiet day can end with a massacre. This variability ensures that fear never dulls. Prisoners cannot acclimate. They remain perpetually alert, exhausted by vigilance. Within this environment, information becomes dangerous. Knowledge is power, and power is a threat. Guards restrict communication ruthlessly. Prisoners caught whispering are punished. Those suspected of spreading rumors are isolated or killed. Yet rumors persist, slipping through cracks in the system. Stories of mass graves, of chambers, of escape attempts circulate quietly, fueling dread and, paradoxically, clarity. The SS are aware of this and respond by tightening control. Searches become more frequent. Work groups are reshuffled. Leaders among prisoners are identified and eliminated. Anyone who appears too confident, too composed, too observant attracts suspicion. Survival requires invisibility, blending into the mass, suppressing any hint of agency. Despite these measures, terror cannot fully extinguish humanity. Small acts of kindness persist in shadows, sharing a crust of bread, offering a whispered warning, shielding someone from a blow when guards are not looking. These acts are fleeting and risky, but they matter. They preserve fragments of identity in a place designed to erase it. Guards counter this by encouraging betrayal. Informants are rewarded with extra food, lighter work, temporary protection. The result is corrosive. Trust evaporates. Every interaction carries suspicion. Prisoners learn to guard their words, their expressions, even their thoughts. Isolation deepens, making organized resistance seem impossible. Yet terror has limits. When fear becomes absolute, it begins to lose its effectiveness. Prisoners reach a point where survival feels as unbearable as death. The constant anticipation of violence exhausts the nervous system. Some become numb, detached. Others grow reckless, driven by a sense that they have nothing left to lose. The SS misinterpret this numbness as submission. They believe terror has succeeded, that obedience is complete. Reports emphasize compliance, efficiency, control. The machinery appears stable. The camp runs smoothly. Transports are processed without incident. From a managerial perspective, Sobibor is a success. But beneath the surface, terror is producing unintended consequences. It sharpens awareness. It forces prisoners to study their captors, to memorize patterns, to notice weaknesses. Fear teaches observation. Observation teaches understanding. Understanding plants the seeds of possibility. Some prisoners begin to recognize that the guards, for all their power, are human. They get drunk. They argue. They make mistakes. They grow complacent. The rigid system that enforces terror also creates routines that can be anticipated. Shift changes, meal times, patrol routes. These patterns become etched into memory. The executions meant to intimidate sometimes have the opposite effect. They demonstrate the stakes clearly. They remove ambiguity. Prisoners know now, with certainty, that survival through obedience alone is impossible. This clarity is terrifying, but it is also liberating in a perverse way. When the future holds only death, the calculus of risk changes. Terror is supposed to paralyze. At Sobibor, it begins to concentrate resolve. Not immediately, not universally, but gradually, among those who survive long enough to see the pattern. Fear does not disappear. It transforms. The guards sense this shift instinctively, even if they cannot articulate it. They become harsher, more vigilant. Punishments intensify. Random violence increases. The system tightens its grip, trying to crush something it cannot quite identify. But terror alone cannot erase thought. It cannot stop people from noticing that guards rely on them to function, that engines need fuel, that doors must be opened and closed by someone. It cannot prevent prisoners from understanding that the system's efficiency is also its vulnerability. As days bleed into one another, Sobibor remains outwardly unchanged. Fences stand. Engines run. Bodies are processed. Reports are filed. To the outside world, nothing appears amiss. Inside, however, terror is no longer just an instrument of control. It is becoming a catalyst. It is forcing a reckoning that the planners did not anticipate. Fear has shown the prisoners the truth of their situation with brutal clarity. And once the truth is undeniable, the question that emerges is no longer how to survive another day. It is how to die with purpose, or whether there might be a way, however slim, to tear something down before the end comes. In a camp built entirely on terror, that question marks the beginning of something the system was never designed to handle. The idea does not arrive as a shout or a declaration. It arrives as a glance held a fraction too long, as a question asked in a whisper late at night, as a thought that refuses to be pushed back down once it has surfaced. In Sobibor, ideas are dangerous not because they are loud, but because they spread silently through people who have nothing left to lose. It begins with recognition. Recognition that obedience has no endpoint here, that usefulness only delays the inevitable, that every routine ends the same way. The men who have survived weeks, then months, begin to understand something essential. The camp needs them. It needs their hands to unload trains, to sort belongings, to move bodies, to keep engines running. This dependence is never acknowledged, but it is real. Without prisoners, Sobibor slows. Without prisoners, it stops. This realization changes how some men look at their work. What once felt like pure submission now appears as leverage, however fragile. Each task completed is proof that the system relies on those it intends to kill. That reliance is a crack. Small, easily overlooked, but undeniable once seen. Whispers circulate cautiously. Not plans, not yet. Just questions. How many guards are on duty at night? Who carries keys? When do shifts change? These questions are not asked openly. They are slipped into conversation between bites of thin soup, murmured while chopping wood, exchanged with a glance when a guard turns away. Every word is measured. Informants are everywhere, or could be. Trust is a risk that can cost a life. Some dismiss the whispers as madness. Escape is impossible, they argue. The forest is too large. The guards too many. Even if someone gets out, where would they go? Locals are hostile. Food is scarce. Survival beyond the fence is uncertain at best. For many, The idea of resistance feels like inviting a faster death. Others listen more closely. These are often men who have worked near the killing areas, who have seen enough to know that the future holds nothing but extinction. For them, the fear of death has lost its power. What remains is the fear of dying without meaning, without having done anything to challenge what is happening. That fear is different. It pushes rather than paralyzes. Among the forced laborers are men with skills the camp did not intend to gather in one place. Former soldiers, craftsmen, mechanics, men who understand weapons, locks, tools, men who know how to read terrain, how to move quietly, how to organize under pressure. Sobibor has collected them inadvertently, concentrating experience and desperation into a single, confined space. These men begin to find one another, not through formal meetings, which would be impossible, but through subtle alignment, a nod of understanding, a shared look when a guard behaves predictably, a quiet acknowledgement that both see the same weakness. They test one another carefully, sharing small observations before larger ones, gauging reactions, backing away at the first sign of hesitation. Leadership does not declare itself. It emerges reluctantly. Those who speak too confidently attract attention. Those who remain calm, observant, and measured draw others in. Authority here is earned through restraint, through listening more than talking, through surviving long enough to be trusted. Information becomes the most valuable currency. Who drinks heavily and when? Which guards wander alone? Where weapons are stored? Which fences are weaker? Which gates are opened regularly? This information is gathered slowly, painstakingly, over weeks. Every detail is memorized. Writing anything down would be suicide. Memory becomes the archive. The SS sense nothing at first. From their perspective, the camp is functioning. Terror is effective. Obedience is routine. There is no open defiance. The idea that prisoners might be planning something feels absurd. These are men they beat, starve, humiliate daily. The imbalance of power appears total. This arrogance is reinforced by routine. Guards grow complacent. They take shortcuts. They leave doors unlocked for a moment too long. They underestimate the men who bow their heads and answer promptly. Control breeds carelessness when it goes unchallenged for long enough. Within the barracks, the atmosphere shifts subtly. Conversations are quieter, more deliberate. Men who once spoke only of hunger and exhaustion now exchange looks heavy with unspoken meaning. Silence itself becomes communication. Everyone involved understands the stakes. Discovery means immediate death, not only for the planners, but for anyone even tangentially connected. Moral questions arise quietly, painfully. Is it right to risk others' lives for a chance at escape? What about those too weak to run? What about reprisals? The SS have demonstrated repeatedly that they will kill indiscriminately in response to resistance. Planning an uprising means accepting that many will die as a result, even if it succeeds. These questions have no easy answers. Some men argue that death is certain anyway, that obedience only ensures the camp's continued operation. Others fear that a failed attempt will bring unimaginable punishment. The debate is internal, fragmented, unresolved. There is no consensus, only shared dread and shared understanding that time is running out. Selections continue. Men disappear overnight. Work groups are reduced, replaced with new arrivals who are terrified, confused, and dangerous to trust. The planners adjust, bringing newcomers in slowly, testing them, watching their behavior. Trust is extended cautiously, often too late to matter. Every delay increases the risk that the core group will be dismantled before anything can happen. Yet something pushes the idea forward despite these risks. News filters in from outside, incomplete but alarming. The war is changing. German defeats are whispered about. The Eastern Front is shifting. The SS appear more tense, more irritable. There is a sense that the regime is accelerating its work, trying to finish before something collapses. Transports increase. Killing intensifies. This acceleration feels like a closing door. If nothing is done soon, there may be no one left to do it. The realization adds urgency to every thought, every whispered exchange. Planning becomes more concrete, though still fragmented. Not a full uprising yet, but scenarios. If a guard is isolated, what then? If weapons can be seized, who knows how to use them? If chaos erupts, which direction leads away from the camp? The forest looms large in these considerations. It is both barrier and refuge. Men who have worked outside the fence describe its density, its trails, its dangers. They talk about streams that could provide water, clearings that could hide small groups. They know the forest is not safe, but it is freer than the camp. Between certain death and uncertain survival, the choice begins to tilt. The SS inadvertently aid this process by continuing to rely on prisoners for increasingly sensitive tasks. Guards escort work details into areas closer to armories, to workshops, to storage rooms. Prisoners notice where weapons are kept, how they are stored, who carries keys. Each observation adds another piece to a puzzle that no one intended them to assemble. Fear remains constant. Every day could be the day the plan is discovered, even before it fully exists. Every beating could be a prelude to exposure. Yet fear has changed character. It no longer suppresses thought. It sharpens it. It compresses focus. Men who once flinched at every shout now absorb insults and blows with a distant calm, saving their reactions for when they matter. The idea of resistance begins to spread beyond a handful of men. Carefully, selectively, each new person brought into the circle is a gamble. Some recoil in terror, unwilling to consider such a risk. Others listen silently, eyes widening, breath held, then nod slowly. The group grows, but never enough to feel safe. No one uses the word uprising aloud. It is too dangerous, too definitive. Instead, they speak of the moment, of if something happens, of when it starts. Language becomes coded, ambiguous, designed to protect even if overheard. Guards hear fragments and dismiss them as meaningless. The SS remain convinced that terror has crushed the human will hear. They interpret quiet as submission, exhaustion as defeat. They do not understand that terror has done something else entirely. It has stripped away illusions. It has clarified the truth with brutal honesty. It has shown the prisoners exactly what obedience buys them. As days pass, the idea hardens from a possibility into a necessity. It is no longer about escape alone. It is about disrupting the machine, even briefly. About forcing the world to notice, if only through smoke rising too high, through reports that cannot fully conceal what happened here. About ensuring that Sobibor is not allowed to function indefinitely in silence. There is no celebration in this shift, no surge of hope. The men who accept it feel a grim resolve settle in their chests, heavy and cold. They know that success is unlikely, that survival afterward is uncertain, that many will die regardless. But they also know that doing nothing guarantees the camp's continued operation. The plan, such as it is, remains incomplete. Too many variables, too many unknowns, too much dependence on timing, on chance, on human behavior under extreme stress. Yet the very act of planning changes something fundamental. It restores a fragment of agency in a place designed to annihilate it. In the barracks at night, bodies lie pressed together, listening to the sounds of the camp. Engines, footsteps, distant shouts. In the darkness, eyes remain open long after exhaustion should have claimed them. Minds replay details obsessively, refining sequences, imagining outcomes. The SS do not hear these thoughts. They hear only silence. They see only obedience. They do not realize that in forcing men to confront death daily, they have stripped away the fear that once kept them passive. The idea has taken root now. It is fragile, dangerous, unfinished, but exists. And in Sobibor, the existence of such an idea is more threatening to the system than any weapon. Because once people begin to imagine an end to the machinery, even a violent, fleeting one, the machinery can no longer rely on terror alone to keep running. The question is no longer whether something will happen. It is when, and how much blood will be spilled before it is over. The camp feels different now, though nothing visible has changed. The fences still stand. The guards still shout. Trains still arrive and depart on schedule. Smoke still drifts into the trees and disappears. To an outsider, Sobibor looks exactly as it always has. But inside, among those forced to keep it running, a quiet tension has settled, like the pressure before a storm. The idea that once existed only as a dangerous thought is beginning to demand form. Planning here does not look like planning anywhere else. There are no meetings, no maps spread out on tables, no clear chains of command. Everything happens in fragments, stitched together across weeks of whispered exchanges and stolen moments. A sentence spoken while carrying bodies. A nod exchanged while chopping wood. A hand gesture when a guard turns his back. Every detail is memorized, never written, because paper can be found and words can betray. The men involved understand immediately that secrecy is survival. Even within the circle, information is rationed. No one knows the entire plan, because there is no single plan yet. There are only pieces, observations, possibilities, contingencies. This fragmentation is intentional. If someone is tortured, if someone breaks, they can only give away so much. The rest must remain buried in memory. Trust is the most dangerous resource of all. It cannot be given freely, yet without it nothing can move forward. Each potential participant is tested carefully, not with direct questions, but with statements designed to provoke reaction. No one leaves here alive. They will kill us all eventually. A man who nods silently might be worth watching. A man who reacts with panic or denial is avoided. A man who repeats such words to others is marked as dangerous. Fear of informants hangs over every interaction. The SS have cultivated betrayal deliberately, rewarding those who report on fellow prisoners. Extra food, lighter work, temporary protection. The system turns survival into a competition, poisoning solidarity. The planners know this and move cautiously, often assuming they are already compromised. Every conversation carries the weight of possible death. Despite this, the circle grows slowly. Each new member adds another set of eyes, another memory bank, another skill. Former soldiers bring knowledge of tactics and discipline. Mechanics understand engines and tools. Carpenters know how wood breaks, how structures fail. These skills were once irrelevant to survival here. Now they become potential weapons. Weapons themselves are the greatest obstacle. Prisoners have none. Guards are armed constantly. Even stealing a knife would be a monumental risk. The idea of seizing weapons during an escape seems almost impossible. Almost. Observations accumulate. Which guards carry pistols? Which carry rifles? Who leaves weapons unattended, even briefly? Who drinks heavily and grows careless? Patterns emerge. Timing becomes the central obsession. Any action must happen when enough guards are distracted, separated, or isolated. The camp's routines are rigid, but not flawless. Meals, shift changes, deliveries, alcohol-fueled evenings. These moments create small windows of vulnerability. Small is enough. The planners also understand that escape alone is not enough. If a handful of men run into the forest while the camp remains intact, the killing will continue. Any attempt must disrupt operations, create chaos, overwhelm the guard's ability to respond quickly. Fire, confusion, noise. These are not side effects. They are objectives. Yet every plan crashes into the same brutal reality. There are hundreds of prisoners. Many are weak, sick, terrified. They cannot all run. Children, elderly, those barely able to stand. What happens to them? No one says it aloud, but everyone thinks it. Any uprising will leave many behind. The guilt of that knowledge is crushing. Some argue that only a small group should attempt escape, those most capable. Others insist that if something happens, it must happen openly, giving everyone at least a chance, however slim. The debate is unresolved because there is no good answer. Sobibor has been designed to ensure that every option carries unbearable cost. The SS, meanwhile, continue to tighten control, sensing something intangible but wrong. Punishments increase. Random inspections become more frequent. Guards appear more tense, quicker to strike. New orders circulate, emphasizing vigilance. Ironically, this heightened pressure only confirms what the planners already know. Time is running out. News from outside trickles in sporadically, carried by new arrivals or overheard from guards. German defeats, retreats, losses on the Eastern Front. The war is no longer unfolding exactly as the regime promised. This creates urgency within the camp command. Transports increase. Killing accelerates. There is a sense of rushing toward completion, of erasing evidence before circumstances change. This acceleration affects planning profoundly. There may not be weeks left, perhaps not even days. The idea of waiting for perfect conditions begins to feel like a luxury Sobibor will not allow. Perfection may never come. Action may have to happen in chaos. One development shifts everything. New prisoners arrive who do not fit the usual pattern. Men with military bearing, discipline, and confidence that has not yet been beaten out of them. They are Red Army soldiers, captured and deported, thrown into Sobibor without understanding its full purpose. Among them are officers accustomed to command, to organizing under fire, to thinking in terms of coordinated action rather than individual survival. At first, these men are watched cautiously. Soldiers can be dangerous, but they can also be reckless. Yet as days pass, it becomes clear that they understand quickly. They observe guard behavior. They assess terrain. They ask careful questions. They do not panic when the truth becomes undeniable. Instead, they focus. Connections form slowly between the original planners and these new arrivals. Language barriers complicate communication, but shared experience bridges gaps. Violence is a language everyone here understands. So is inevitability. The soldiers grasp the reality of Sobibor with grim clarity and reach the same conclusion independently. Something must be done. With their arrival, planning takes on a new intensity. Ideas that once seemed impossible are now examined with professional detachment. Killing guards silently, coordinating multiple actions simultaneously, using deception against the deceivers. These are no longer abstract fantasies. They are scenarios discussed in whispers, refined through collective memory. Still, fear remains omnipresent. Every night could bring discovery. Every beating could end with a name spoken under torture. The planners sleep lightly, if at all, rehearsing sequences in their minds, adjusting details endlessly. There is no peace in planning rebellion here. Only pressure. Moral weight deepens as the plan solidifies. If guards are killed, retaliation will be brutal. Innocent prisoners will die. But if nothing happens, everyone will die anyway. This logic becomes unavoidable, though it offers no comfort. The planners do not romanticize what they are considering. They understand it for what it is, an act born of desperation, not heroism. Small tests are conducted when possible. A tool goes missing to see how guards respond. A work detail is delayed slightly to observe reaction time. These tests are risky, but necessary. Each confirms assumptions, reveals weaknesses, sharpens understanding. The system is strong, but it is not omniscient. The forest beyond the fence is discussed constantly. Routes, cover, distance. Some know it better than others, having worked outside the camp. They describe marshy areas, dense undergrowth, places where tracks might vanish. They also describe dangers, patrols, hostile villagers, starvation. Escape is not freedom. It is a gamble with terrible odds. Yet the planners are no longer thinking only in terms of personal survival. Something else has entered the calculation. If even a few escape and live long enough to speak, Sobibor's secrecy will be broken. Testimony matters. Memory matters. The world must know this place existed. This belief does not erase fear, but it gives it direction. Fear becomes fuel rather than restraint. Men who once avoided eye contact now meet each other's gaze deliberately, silently acknowledging shared purpose. There is no triumph in this connection, only resolve. The SS continue to underestimate them. From their perspective, the camp is functioning. Prisoners are exhausted, starved, terrified. Planning rebellion under such conditions seems inconceivable. Reports sent upward emphasize control, efficiency, success. The idea that the camp itself could turn against its operators is dismissed without thought. This arrogance is perhaps Sobibor's greatest weakness. As days pass, the plan edges closer to something tangible. Not perfect, not complete, but possible. The planners know that once action begins, there will be no adjustments, no second chances. Events will move too quickly. Chaos will rule. Survival will depend on instinct as much as preparation. The weight of this knowledge presses down relentlessly. Some men withdraw, unable to bear it. Others lean into it, becoming calmer, more focused, as if accepting the end frees them from fear. The barracks at night are filled with restless bodies and racing thoughts. No one sleeps deeply anymore. The camp continues to kill without pause. Trains arrive. People die. The machinery hums. Each day of delay means thousands more murdered. This reality becomes unbearable. Planning can no longer be an abstract exercise. It must move toward action, however imperfect. The idea that once arrived quietly has now transformed into something dangerous and urgent. It is no longer just a thought shared in whispers. It is a plan taking shape under the eyes of guards who believe terror has broken everyone here. They are wrong. And soon, Sobibor itself will force a reckoning that neither side can avoid. The day does not announce itself as different. The forest looks the same. The fences hold. The guards shout the same commands with the same bored authority. Smoke still drifts upward and thins among the trees. If anyone is watching from afar, Sobibor appears unchanged. Another day of routine death unfolding without interruption. But inside the camp, something has shifted so subtly that even those carrying it can barely name it. The waiting has ended. The moment has arrived not because conditions are perfect, but because they never will be. For weeks, tension has coiled tight beneath obedience. Men have memorized patterns until they can feel them in their bones. They know which guards linger after meals, which drink too much, which patrol alone. They know where tools are stored, where doors stick, where a shout echoes longer than it should. Every detail has been absorbed under the pressure of survival. Now those details align, not cleanly, not safely, but enough. The choice is not framed as courage. No one speaks of bravery or victory. The choice is framed as arithmetic. If nothing happens, death is certain. If something happens, death is likely, but not guaranteed. This is not a gamble taken lightly. It is a calculation forced by inevitability. Men who make it do so with steady hands and hollow eyes, having already imagined their own end countless times. Signals are passed quietly, almost invisibly. A nod held half a second longer. A tool left where it should not be. A word spoken that sounds casual, but is not. There is no trumpet, no rallying cry. Noise would kill this before it begins. Silence is the weapon. The plan relies on deception turned inward, on using the camp's own routines against it. Guards are to be isolated one by one, summoned under false pretenses. A missing item, a repair request, a delivery that needs inspection. The camp runs on such interruptions. Guards are accustomed to prisoners calling for assistance, to problems that require quick resolution. They do not expect resistance. They expect submission. The first guard steps into a workshop, annoyed but unconcerned. He is armed, but relaxed. His posture betrays confidence born of terror inflicted daily. He does not see the men, waiting until the door closes behind him. What follows is fast and brutal. There is no room for hesitation, no time for thought. Tools become weapons. Strength meets desperation. The guard goes down, stunned and silent. A life ends not with ceremony, but with urgency. There is no pause to reflect. The body is dragged aside, hidden as best as possible. Weapons are taken, ammunition checked. Hands tremble, then steady. The weight of a pistol feels unreal, heavy with consequence. For the first time, the imbalance of power has shifted, however slightly. Elsewhere in the camp, The same thing happens again and again. Guards vanish into workshops, storage rooms, barracks. Some resist more fiercely. Shots ring out prematurely in one location, shattering silence. For a moment, everything threatens to collapse into chaos too soon. Men freeze. Hearts race. Then the plan absorbs the disruption and continues, because it must. As gunfire echoes, prisoners look up from their work, confusion flashing across faces already etched with fear. Some understand immediately. Others hesitate, unsure whether this is another exercise in terror. Shouts erupt. Orders contradict each other. Guards run, trying to understand what is happening. Their training ill-suited for a threat they never believed possible. The forest, which has swallowed screams for so long, now carries different sounds. Gunshots crack sharply, echoing between trees. Shouting overlaps, German commands colliding with shouted warnings in multiple languages. Smoke thickens, not from pits or pyres, but from fires set deliberately to create confusion, to mask movement, to fracture lines of sight. Prisoners begin to run. At first, it is hesitant, disbelieving. Then it becomes frantic. Men sprint toward fences, toward gates, toward anywhere that looks like an opening. Some carry weapons taken from fallen guards. Most carry nothing but the clothes on their backs, and the knowledge that standing still means death. The camp erupts in emotion, bodies surging in every direction. Guards fire wildly, no longer in control. Some aim into crowds. Others retreat, trying to regroup, shouting for reinforcements that cannot arrive fast enough. The rigid order of Sobibor collapses under the weight of its own assumptions. The system was built to kill the compliant, not to fight the desperate. At the perimeter, fences are cut or climbed. Barbed wire tears skin and clothing. Men scream as they are snagged, bleeding, but they keep moving. Others are shot mid-climb, bodies falling back into the camp they were trying to escape. There is no time to help them. Survival has narrowed to a single imperative: run. The forest receives them without judgment. Trees close around fleeing figures, swallowing sound and shape. Branches whip faces. Roots catch feet. Darkness deepens quickly beneath the canopy. Direction dissolves. Panic threatens to undo what momentum has achieved. Some men run blindly until lungs burn and legs fail. Others slow, forcing themselves to move quietly, to listen. Behind them, the camp roars with confusion and violence. Sirens wail. More shots ring out. Dogs are released, their barking slicing through the forest air. Search parties form quickly, armed and furious. The SS responds with brutal efficiency now that the threat is undeniable. This is no longer containment. It is a hunt. For those who escape the fence, the ordeal has only begun. The forest is vast and unfamiliar. Night falls rapidly, bringing cold and disorientation. Groups splinter unintentionally, losing one another in darkness. Names are called softly, then not at all. Silence becomes protection again, even as fear surges. Some stumble into marshes, sinking into mud that clutches legs like hands. Others push through thickets so dense they tear flesh. The sounds of pursuit loom close, then fade, then return. Dog tracks scent relentlessly. Men strip off outer clothing to confuse trails, smear mud on skin, wade through streams to break scent lines. These tactics are instinctive for some, learned long ago, remembered under pressure. Not everyone makes it far. Shots crack nearby. Shouts echo. A scream cuts off abruptly. Each sound is a reminder of how fragile escape is, how easily the forest can become another killing ground. Those who hear these sounds force themselves not to stop, not to turn back. Grief must wait, if it ever comes. Dawn creeps in slowly, pale light filtering through branches. Survivors huddle wherever they have collapsed, shivering, exhausted, wounded. Hunger gnaws immediately. Throats burn. Minds race. The reality of escape sets in with brutal clarity. They are free of the camp, but not of danger. Patrols spread outward. Locals may betray them. Food is scarce. Shelter uncertain. Back at Sobibor, the cost of the uprising is exacted swiftly. Guards regroup and unleash their fury on those left behind. Prisoners who did not or could not run are rounded up. Some are executed on the spot. Others are forced to witness punishment designed to erase the idea of resistance forever. The camp's operators understand now that something fundamental has broken. Fires burn uncontrolled in places, destroying buildings, records, order. The illusion of calm is gone. Reports sent upward are frantic, contradictory, filled with blame. The camp that was supposed to operate silently has erupted into noise that cannot be ignored. For those in the forest, the hours blur together. Some find temporary refuge with sympathetic locals who risk everything to hide them. Others are turned away or betrayed. A knock on a door can mean food and shelter, or a gunshot and capture. Each decision is a gamble weighed under exhaustion. Captured escapees are brought back or shot where they are found. Their deaths ripple outward as warnings. Yet even these deaths cannot undo what has happened. The secret has been breached. The camp has been wounded. Survivors carry knowledge now that cannot be reburied. Among those who evade capture, something remarkable occurs. Despite terror and hunger, despite grief and fear, they begin to speak. They share what they have seen. They tell of trains that never returned, of chambers hidden in forests, of thousands killed daily. Their words are fragmented, disbelieved by some, but they persist. The story of Sobibor begins to leak into the world. The uprising does not destroy the camp immediately. The machinery limps on for a time, patched together, guarded more heavily, driven by rage and urgency. But the sense of invulnerability is gone. The planners know now that secrecy is compromised, that witnesses exist, that time is no longer on their side. For the survivors in hiding, days stretch into weeks of uncertainty. Some are recaptured, others starve. A few manage to link up with partisan groups, bringing with them first-hand testimony of industrialized murder. Their accounts are raw, inconsistent in details, but united in truth. A place called Sobibor exists. It is a factory of death. Inside the camp, those left alive understand that nothing will ever be the same. Terror intensifies, but it cannot erase the memory of guards falling, of fences breached, of the system faltering. The knowledge that resistance was possible, however costly, lingers like an afterimage. It cannot be beaten out. The uprising does not bring freedom to all. It does not save the thousands already dead. It does not end the war or the Holocaust. But it does something else, something the system was never designed to withstand. It breaks the assumption of absolute control. Sobibor was built to annihilate people without leaving witnesses. On this day, that design fails. And once failure enters the system, even briefly, it changes everything that follows. The forest remembers footsteps that did not end at the chamber door. The world, slowly and painfully, begins to hear a name it was never meant to know. Sobibor is no longer silent. Silence returns slowly, unevenly, like dust settling after an explosion. In the days that follow the uprising, Sobibor does not roar with the certainty it once had. It mutters. It stumbles. It moves forward because it must, but the rhythm is broken, the confidence gone. Guards patrol with fingers tighter on triggers, eyes darting into the trees. Orders are barked louder than before, as if volume alone might restore control. But something fundamental has shifted, and everyone inside the fence can feel it. The camp is sealed almost immediately. Roads are blocked. Patrols spread outward in widening rings. Dogs comb the forest tirelessly, noses low, handlers shouting encouragement and threats in equal measure. The hunt is ruthless and systematic. Any sign of movement draws gunfire. Villages nearby are warned that harboring escapees means death. Some comply eagerly. Others help quietly, hiding men in barns, cellars, attics, risking everything for strangers whose names they may never learn. Inside the camp, the response is swift and merciless. Those who did not escape are rounded up, interrogated, beaten. Guards demand names, details, explanations that no one can safely give. Torture follows suspicion, not evidence. Pain is used not to uncover truth, but to reassert dominance, to remind everyone who still holds power. Executions are staged publicly, bodies left on display longer than usual, the message unmistakable. The SS commanders scramble to understand how this happened. Reports are written and rewritten, blame deflected upward and downward. Some accuse complacent guards. Others blame prisoners who were allowed too much mobility, too much responsibility. The reality is harder to admit. The system relied on terror alone, and terror failed. That failure is not something easily explained to superiors who demand results, not excuses. Transport slow, then stop. For the first time, the rail spur sits empty for days. Killing cannot proceed at its former pace while chaos reigns. Buildings damaged during the uprising smolder or stand charred and unusable. Records are incomplete, some destroyed in fire. Weapons are missing. Trust among the guards has eroded. Anyone could have hesitated, could have failed to act, could have been complicit. Word of the uprising spreads quickly through SS channels, stripped of context, distorted by shame and rage. It is described as a mutiny, a betrayal, an aberration. Measures are ordered to ensure it never happens again. Yet the very need for such orders reveals the truth. Sobibor has been exposed as vulnerable. Within days, a decision begins to take shape. The camp cannot continue as it did. It is too compromised, too visible, too dangerous to the illusion of total control the regime depends on. Witnesses are at large. Survivors are speaking. The forest no longer guarantees silence. Orders come down quietly, without ceremony. Sobibor is to be dismantled. The process begins immediately. Prisoners still alive are forced into new tasks. Their desperation exploited one last time. Buildings are torn down methodically. Barracks are dismantled plank by plank. Fences are pulled apart. Watchtowers are toppled. Anything that marks the camp's function is erased or burned. The goal is not just closure, but disappearance. Mass graves are opened. Bodies long buried are exhumed, dragged back into the open by prisoners who retch and sob as they work. Corpses are stacked on pyres built from rails and wood, doused with fuel, and set alight. The smoke is thick, black, choking. It hangs over the forest for days, a stench impossible to mistake. Ash drifts across the clearing, settling on skin, clothing, leaves. The prisoners forced to do this work understand what it means. Once the evidence is destroyed, they will be next. There will be no reason to keep them alive. This knowledge presses down with suffocating weight. Some work mechanically, numb beyond tears. Others whisper prayers, farewells, fragments of memory they cling to desperately. Executions continue sporadically, used to maintain control and accelerate compliance. Men collapse from exhaustion and are shot where they fall. There is no pretense now, no illusion of showers or resettlement. Sobibor's final phase is nakedly brutal, driven by urgency and fear rather than efficiency. The forest, once an accomplice, becomes a witness in this final act. Trees are cut down to open sightlines. Paths are filled in. The rail spur is dismantled. The ground is churned repeatedly, mixed with ash and sand, flattened until it looks unremarkable. Seeds are scattered. Saplings planted. Grass encouraged to grow quickly. Nature is conscripted one last time, ordered to forget. For the SS, this destruction is not an admission of guilt. It is a logistical adjustment. The machinery of extermination continues elsewhere, in other camps, with renewed secrecy. Sobibor becomes a liability to be erased, not a lesson to be learned. Outside the camp, the hunt continues. Many escapees are captured and killed in the days and weeks that follow. Their bodies are displayed or buried anonymously. Some are betrayed by those they trust. Others starve or freeze. Survival is uneven and cruel. Escape was never a promise of life, only a chance. Yet some do survive. A handful manage to evade patrols, to link up with partisans, to hide long enough for front lines to shift. They carry with them memories that refuse to be silenced. Their accounts are fragmented, raw, often disbelieved at first. The scale of what they describe strains credibility. A camp designed solely for death. Gas chambers hidden in a forest. Thousands murdered daily. An uprising that briefly cracked the system open. Slowly, painfully, these stories begin to coalesce. Details align. Names repeat. The outline of Sobibor takes shape beyond the trees that once concealed it. The regime cannot fully contain this knowledge now. The secrecy it depended on has been breached, not by armies, but by prisoners with nothing left to lose. Back at the site itself, the transformation is nearly complete. Where barracks once stood, there is bare ground. Where chambers operated, there is nothing but disturbed soil and scattered ash. The camp is replaced with a small farm, tended by a single guard and his family. Livestock graze where people once waited to die. Crops grow where bodies were burned. From a distance, it looks ordinary, even peaceful. This ordinariness is deliberate. The greatest horror of Sobibor's end is how easily it disappears into the landscape. No monument marks the place. No warning signs announce what happened here. Without testimony, without memory, the ground itself would tell no story. For those who survive the camp, but not the escape, their fate is sealed quietly. They are transported to other camps, killed to eliminate witnesses, absorbed into the vast machinery of death still grinding across Europe. Their names vanish from records already incomplete or destroyed. For the guards and SS officers involved, accountability is distant and uncertain. Some are transferred. Others continue their careers uninterrupted. A few will face justice years later, confronted with testimony they believe they had erased. Many will never answer for what they did, living out their lives under assumed normalcy. The war moves on. Front lines shift. Cities fall. Camps are liberated elsewhere, their horrors exposed to the world in images and films that shock and numb. Sobibor, however, remains largely invisible, its physical absence making its story harder to grasp, easier to overlook. Yet the uprising ensures that Sobibor is not entirely forgotten. Survivors speak when they can. Historians piece together fragments. Documents surface. Testimony accumulates. The camp re-enters history not as a footnote, but as a challenge to assumptions about absolute power and human agency under extreme oppression. What remains most unsettling is not the violence itself, but the efficiency with which it was dismantled, concealed, and almost lost. Sobibor was built to vanish its victims. In the end, it nearly vanished itself. The forest grows thicker over time. New generations walk these paths unaware of what lies beneath their feet. Birds return. Wind moves through branches. On the surface, the land heals. Beneath it, memory lingers, stubborn and unresolved. The destruction of Sobibor does not bring closure. It leaves questions instead. How many places like this existed, unseen and unnamed? How many were erased without witnesses? How many stories were never told because no one survived long enough to speak? As the camp disappears physically, its meaning grows heavier. Sobibor becomes a symbol not only of industrialized murder, but of the lengths to which perpetrators went to hide it, and of the extraordinary cost paid by those who refused to let it remain hidden. The machinery is gone now. The fences, the chambers, the barracks, reduced to ash and soil. But the consequences of what happened here ripple outward, into memory, into testimony, into the uneasy silence that follows destruction. And in that silence, one truth remains inescapable. Sobibor was meant to end without a trace. It did not. The place no longer exists in the way it once did, but it refuses to disappear. Long after the fences are torn down and the ashes scattered into sand, Sobibor lingers in the spaces where certainty once lived. It lingers in testimonies spoken haltingly decades later, in courtrooms that smell nothing like pine or smoke, in documents filled with dates and names that struggle to capture the scale of what happened here. It lingers most stubbornly in memory, fragile, contested, incomplete, but alive. In the immediate aftermath of the war, the world is overwhelmed by ruins. Cities lie flattened. Millions are displaced. Camps are discovered one after another, each revealing horrors that feel impossible to rank or compare. Against this avalanche of suffering, Sobibor almost slips away. There are no dramatic liberation images, no skeletal survivors greeting armies at the gates, no intact gas chambers to film. The camp was dismantled too thoroughly. The ground gives up little. Survivors who escaped into the forest face a different kind of struggle. They are alive, but survival does not mean safety. Many spend months hiding, moving constantly, trusting strangers who may betray them. Some are captured and killed even after the uprising. Others endure hunger, illness, and cold that claim them slowly. Liberation, when it comes, does not feel triumphant. It feels unreal. The world they re-enter does not resemble the one they lost. When these survivors begin to speak, they encounter disbelief. Their stories are fragmented by trauma, interrupted by grief, shaped by years of silence. A camp built solely to kill, hidden in a forest, erased almost completely. This strains comprehension even for those who want to understand. Some listeners doubt not out of malice, but because the truth is too vast, too methodical, too cruel to fit easily into existing frameworks of understanding. Yet testimony accumulates. Details recur independently. Names align. Routes match. Historians begin to piece together what the Nazis tried so hard to erase. Sobibor reemerges not as a rumor, but as a documented reality. A place designed for annihilation, operating with chilling efficiency, undone not by armies, but by prisoners who refuse to disappear quietly. Justice arrives slowly, unevenly, and often incompletely. Some of the men who commanded or guarded Sobibor are tried decades later, their hair gray, their voices calm as they deny responsibility or plead obedience. Courtrooms feel absurdly clean compared to the forest where they once stood. Survivors testify, reliving memories that never truly faded. Words like procedure and duty are spoken again, this time under oath. Many perpetrators are never held accountable at all. They vanish into post-war anonymity, reintegrating into ordinary life, protected by bureaucracy, indifference, or time. This absence of justice becomes part of Sobibor's legacy, a reminder that erasure did not end with the camp's destruction. It continued through silence, denial, and delay. As decades pass, the landscape where Sobibor stood grows quieter. Trees mature, paths disappear. Without markers, the ground looks unremarkable. This ordinariness is unsettling. It suggests how easily such places can be lost, how little the earth itself resists forgetting. Without effort, memory fades, and with it, understanding. Eventually, remembrance takes physical form. Memorials are established. Stones are placed. Paths are cleared deliberately, not to erase, but to guide. Visitors walk where trains once stopped, where people were forced to undress, where the corridor narrowed toward death. Silence here is different. It is chosen, reflective, heavy with intention. For those who come later, Sobibor poses difficult questions. How could such a place function so efficiently, so quietly? How could so many people be killed in such a short span of time, with so little resistance from the outside world? The answers are uncomfortable. They implicate not only perpetrators, but systems, bystanders, and the human capacity to normalize atrocity when it is hidden behind language and distance. Sobibor also complicates narratives of victimhood and resistance. It refuses simple categorization. The prisoners were not passive, but they were not free. Their resistance did not save most of them, but it mattered profoundly. It disrupted the machinery, exposed the camp, and ensured that witnesses survived to speak. It challenges the notion that resistance must succeed to be meaningful. The uprising stands as one of the most extraordinary acts of defiance in Holocaust history precisely because of its context. These were not armed fighters with external support. They were starved, terrorize prisoners operating inside a system designed to erase agency entirely. That they managed to coordinate, to act, to break the illusion of absolute control speaks to something deeply human that even Sobibor could not extinguish. Yet the legacy is not one of inspiration alone. It is also one of warning. Sobibor shows how modern systems, bureaucracy, transportation networks, euphemistic language, division of labor, can be weaponized to produce mass murder with terrifying efficiency. It shows how ordinary people can become cogs in extraordinary evil, not through sudden transformation, but through gradual accommodation. Remembering Sobibor is not only about honoring the dead. It is about confronting the mechanisms that made their deaths possible. The camp was not an anomaly born of madness. It was a product of planning, ideology, and administrative precision. Its horror lies not just in what happened, but in how methodically it was done. As the years stretch further from the events themselves, the responsibility to remember shifts. Survivors age and die. Testimony becomes archival rather than living. The task of remembrance passes to those who did not experience the Holocaust firsthand. This transfer is fragile. Memory without witnesses is vulnerable to distortion, denial, and fatigue. Sobibor's near erasure makes this vulnerability especially acute. Without images burned into public consciousness, without ruins to confront, it risks becoming abstract. A name, a statistic, a paragraph. Resisting this abstraction is essential. The camp story demands specificity. Names, places, decisions, because abstraction is what allowed it to exist in the first place. Education becomes one of the few remaining defenses against forgetting. When Sobibor is taught, when its mechanisms are explained in detail, it challenges assumptions about progress, morality, and safety. It asks whether societies truly learn from past atrocities, or whether they simply adapt their narratives until vigilance fades. The forest where Sobibor once stood does not speak. It does not accuse. It does not explain. That burden falls on those who know its history. Every retelling is an act of resistance against the original intent of the camp, to kill without witnesses, to vanish without trace. Sobibor also forces reflection on the limits of justice and the nature of closure. There is no ending that balances the scale of loss, no sentence that restores what was taken. The most that can be done is acknowledgement, clear, unflinching, sustained acknowledgement that this happened, that it was done by human beings, and that it must not be allowed to slip into obscurity. In the end, Sobibor stands as a paradox. It was designed to erase lives completely, yet it survives in history precisely because of those who refused erasure. It was meant to operate silently, yet its story now speaks with a force that cannot be easily ignored. It was built to leave no trace, yet its absence itself has become a trace, a negative space that demands explanation. The last trains no longer arrive. The engines no longer run. The corridor no longer narrows toward a sealed door. But the questions Sobibor raises remain unresolved, pressing against the present with uncomfortable relevance. How fragile is civilization? How quickly can language be twisted to justify cruelty? How many steps does it take to move from exclusion to extermination? There is no comfort in these questions, only responsibility. Sobibor does not ask to be remembered because it is unique. It asks to be remembered because it was possible, and because, under certain conditions, it could be possible again. The camp is gone. The warning is not.